Live again on Periscope, live again on Facebook. Can you check YouTube? Let's see. Are we live on YouTube?
I was checking on Facebook, sorry.
All right. We're live again. So now we have 2 viewers, so we gotta wait. Gotta wait till more viewers come on the YouTube.
Come back to us, people.
I said we were gonna do a marathon. I didn't say it was gonna be good. But look at that.
I didn't say it was going to be
Look
good.
at that quality.
Much better quality.
No more buffering, I hope. So we'll shoot the shizit. We'll shoot the shizit for a few minutes. Let viewers come back. On Facebook, we're live. Press the share button.
Hi, Kelly and Sandy on Facebook.
We are shamelessly promoting our GoFundMe on my birthday. I'm wearing a crown.
I can't find the rest of the crown.
Skip your latte or whatever the heck your unnecessary purchase is today. Feel free to go fund us. The GoFundMe, what is the GoFundMe for?
The GoFundMe is for seed money to start status quo off the right way. Every business needs seed money. We want to be accountable to the people. We want to report for the people. So the GoFundMe is for in-field reporting and other things we'll get into related to reporting.
Yes. Let me press the share button so I could share myself, since Facebook doesn't exactly like to share.
And I'll do the same on Periscope.
When I am
and
live.
you guys could all share. That would be wonderful.
Press the share button. Let's get this out to as many people as possible, because we're gonna be doing a.
You had been up to 300 on Periscope.
Oh darn it! Can you do that again?
I didn't do it.
Oh, so.
You were probably featured.
Oh, I was featured. Gosh darn it! So we're going to be talking about 32 stories that we think are being undercovered, and we're going to just keep going until we don't want to go anymore. We're definitely going longer than the normal hour. It is my birthday, so if you're feeling like you want to help me blow out the candles, if you're feeling happy and you want to show me and us, definitely, there's a GoFundMe link right there.
Laura.
I would rather beg you, the viewer, than beg corporate overlords to fund us. Ooh, Gene says much better quality now. Unfortunately, now we're going to have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait for more viewers.
Laura, I want to tell you, we didn't mean to stop the feed. We just had to plug it into the Ethernet because we'd forgotten, so it just stopped itself. And Natalie, thank you. Yay, she gave some for your birthday.
Thank you, Natalie. You get this. And by the way, just so you know, a little personal biographical information on my birthday. My name is Jordan Sheridan. My middle name is Daniel. I'm 32 years of age. I was born in Bethpage, New York, a suburban enclave, but I grew up in Massapequa, New York. Don't let people tell you I was born in Kenya. I was born in America, and I am eligible in 3 years to run for president if I so choose.
Wait.
I grew up 2 brothers, a mother and a father who did everything for me. I have a close family, thankfully, still. Both of my brothers I saw last night. I didn't grow up with a dog, but now my family has a dog that I love dearly.
He's the best dog.
I was in special education as a child, which certain individuals have used as an attack
God.
on me. I am not ashamed that I was in special education. I think Albert
I'm gonna
Einstein
show
had a
them.
learning disability, actually.
What I had. Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah.
I'm going to show them something. Hold on.
You want
You can keep talking.
Jen wants to show you something.
Oh, no, because that'll show all your stuff. This is what I have as Jordan's picture on my phone. Is Rusty, his doggy.
And press the share button, because sharing is caring. And as you could see, as we were just talking about this, but it seems that I'm one of the few YouTube channels that when you go up in subscribers, you go down in views.
Yeah, but they just want to hear happy today.
We want to hear happy? You know what sucks, though, about your birthday? And by the way, this is a super chat, and we are definitely trying to get the GoFundMe moving. So feel free either in the super chat or to contribute in the GoFundMe. And in the GoFundMe, don't just contribute, leave a comment why you're contributing, because we want to get that out there so we can make more promo videos.
Kath wants to see your birth certificate.
My birth certificate? I'll ask
I mean,
Lori.
you're sharing everything else.
I'll ask Lori Sheridan, who called me this
Oh,
morning.
let me text her and see if we can get some baby pictures.
Oh, you want baby pictures too? Oy vey.
Someone asked yesterday.
So here's an interesting thing. I'm 32 now, and we are launching a company. And, throughout my whole 20s, I said to myself, I was in corporate media for most of my 20s. I hated it. And I always said, you know what, you only live once, and I want to go out on my own. And now I have the opportunity to go out on my own. So I'm thinking, year 32, I'm going to spend most of my time on the road. I just need help to get and stay out there. Because the worst thing about reporting on real stories in the field is when you finally go out in the field, but you only have enough money to be there for like 2 or 3 days. Very hard to break anything in 2 or 3 days. You really have to dig deep, dig down and all that. Gene, $49.99. Happy birthday, Gene. Today, I'm going to make a special request on my birthday. And Jen, I don't know if you'll like this or not like this. I am actually going to ask you to contribute to the GoFundMe rather than the Super Chat, only for one simple reason. The GoFundMe, we don't only want the amount. We don't only want the dollar amount. We want to have it spread as far and wide as possible.
But you have to be very clear. You don't want to diminish this amazing super chat.
Oh, no. Gene, thank you very much.
Your timing was bad.
No, Gene, $49.99.
It's
very appreciated.
Perfect. It's perfect.
But
we're just telling you the reason why we're pushing the GoFundMe today.
We're pushing the GoFundMe in specific because we want to be able to show down the road when we are looking for more funding, not from GoFundMe, but from other sources. Hey, we had X amount of people contribute just for a GoFundMe. Mm-hmm. We have X amount of dollars coming in per month via Super Chat. Our goal is not to have a long-term business model that focuses on GoFundMes. This is a one-time deal.
Yay,
never give up, never
Mr.
surrender. Not sure how much that is.
British.
Oh, what's 21?
Or euro.
Oh, what's 21?
Mr. Gripley, what's the conversion?
Yes. So there's the GoFundMe link. You know what? Actually, leave whatever you want. Super Chat, GoFundMe. Money's money.
Do what you want. It's party day.
It's party day. So we are going to be talking about the 32 stories that are so undercovered, so not covered, that we want to get out in the field and cover it. On the previous live stream, we read the first one, which was about all the police violence going on. And now I want to get to some others here. Oh, Natalie donated $10 with a comment on GoFundMe. We need more indie journalists that actually care about the rest of the U.S. Happy birthday, Jordan.
You could do
Thank
two
you, Natalie.
at once, too.
Thank you, Natalie. I do care about the rest of America, and there's a reason that I don't report much in New York. There's a reason I don't report much in Washington, D.C. Not because I don't care about New York or Washington, D.C., but there's enough reporters in New York City and Washington, D.C. Do you see many reporters in Flint, Michigan? Do you see many reporters in Detroit, Michigan? Do you see many reporters out in the Midwest, out in the West, out in the South, out in the Pacific Northwest? Do you see many reporters in the trenches covering things? I sure don't, and that's what we want. The GoFundMe is so that we could get out in the field. Myself, Ty Bayless, Jen going to be going out in the field at times, and we're also trying to hire other reporters.
Oh, they converted for you.
Oh, thank you very much. So, here are some other stories that are undercovered, and we would like. Oh my God, Elena! I keep wanting to talk about the stories, but you keep contributing.
2 at once.
2 at once.
Yeah. That's too hard to do.
Elena, $50 donation. Thank you so much, Elena. And by the way, feel free. I'll read your comments. If you want to leave a comment why you're contributing, let us know.
But we do need to get to some stories.
Oh yeah, we do want to read some stories too. So let me read you.
Periscope, can you invite your followers and please retweet on Twitter?
Yes, sharing is caring. So here's another story: the militarization of police that we want to cover out in the field. We're seeing increasingly heavy presence of armed police units that have militarized weaponry. As you saw in Standing Rock, you've seen in Ferguson. They're going in the streets with military tanks. They're going in the streets with armored shields. They're going in the streets, in some cases, with assault weapons. They're going in the streets freezing water in sub-zero temperatures. And they're doing this to terrorize people. They're doing this. Part of war is psychological warfare. They are trying to terrorize and intimidate people. You just saw, I did an interview that I just posted on this YouTube channel with a journalist down at the Bayou Bridge Pipeline that's literally gotten arrested twice and charged with felony arrest for covering what's going on there, which is, again, private security mercenaries terrorizing the hell out of police. So, terrorizing the hell out of water protectors and journalists. Oh, thank you. Somebody just texted me.
We got another Peg, but I can't see him.
Okay. I'll get. We'll update with who's been contributing. So we're also saying this type of militarized police is targeting minorities, indigenous, brown people. You even see them targeting Asian people in certain protests. This type of militarized police not only targets minority people, it targets poor areas, because most of these pipelines are happening. They're building it through indigenous reservations and areas where poor people live. They're also, most of these black men getting killed are happening in poor areas. So we need to keep that in mind. And this is a quote, I don't know from who. Using a rare geoced census of SWAT team deployment from Maryland, they show that militarized police units are more often deployed in communities with large shares of African American residents, even after controlling for local crime rates. Further, using nationwide panel data on local police militarization, they show that militarized policing fails to enhance officer safety or reduce local crime. Also may diminish police reputation in the mass public. So that is from
PNAS.org.
PNAS.org. And by the way, it's in addition to militarized weaponry, they are starting to surveil activist groups. There was a gas explosion in Massachusetts last week. They had to evacuate half the town. Well, the police department tweeted out something about the gas explosion, and on their browser, you could see all the different activist groups they're monitoring and surveilling. That's from a Massachusetts police department. Massachusetts, pretty wealthy for the most part in Massachusetts. It's not all targeting poor people, but police departments are not targeting specifically actual crime. They're targeting peaceful activist groups that are just peacefully demonstrating against things like police violence, against things like fossil fuel pipelines, against things like uranium mining, against things that are destroying the planet and targeting minorities. Did I miss something?
No, that's, dead on.
Right. So before I get to the next topic, want to read, we just got another contribution, I believe. Peg donated $15 and commented, "You care to report the truth, and all of you have skin in the game. Big respect." Thank you, Peg. And speaking of skin in the game, you see the bags under my eyes? I haven't slept in 3 weeks. That's a problem.
You read this one?
Yep, I read that one too. So I want to get to another story that we'd like to cover out in the field that I think is getting very, very little coverage, and that is the prison. The prison, if this would open.
Gotta leave it open.
Well, I'm trying to toggle between that and... So you have prison labor, which is basically modern slavery. Now, it's going to be hard for me. It's going to be hard for me to break into prisons and interview people inmates that are basically working for no wages at all.
Right.
But by law, they're supposed to get some wages.
You know, the only reason that I heard about this, I mean, call me stupid, but I had no idea what was going on. I would never. I had no idea what was going on. You know what educated me on this? Not the news. Orange is the new black. When they had to sew the underwear that was getting, and so in real life, they're in prison making underwear that they sell at Victoria's Secret and things like that. So, but what's written in here is much worse. It's by a guy who refused. He's been in prison for murder. He says he did not commit. And so he's refused to do the work that people are forced to do. And so he's in solitary confinement because he won't do work for no wages at all.
And I like this comment from Occupy the New Paradigm. I just turned 40, still a threat to the system.
Good.
Ooh, I like that. See?
Status quo.
You're never too old to challenge power and
40's
challenge
not
the
old.
system. Right.
40's super
I'm saying. And by the way,
because you're inching up there.
Just reminding people, share this video. Let's get it out to more people. We had to stop and restart, so viewership is lagging a little bit because probably they're not notifying people twice.
Well, do you want me to read this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I was talking about with the prison labor, and this was in The Guardian, and a prisoner was speaking out about what he called slave labor in the United States in the prisons. So basically, this guy says that slavery never ended in this country. And here are some quotes from him. Anyone convicted of a crime after 1865 could be leased out by the state to private corporations who would extract their labor for little to no pay. Now think about that. That's crazy. To anyone convicted of a crime can be leased out. That is stunning. The most extreme that the author has seen personally in his long time in prison was in Texas and Florida, where prisoners are forced to work in the field for free without pay. And indeed, they are picking cotton, which brings up all kinds of terrible, terrible images. They're cajoled into chain gangs, taken out, where they're made to grow all the food that they themselves will eat. They're given primitive handheld tools like wooden sticks, and they are guarded by the elite prisoners. They are also guarded by policemen with weapons. And prisoners who don't comply with this disgusting slave operation are sent to solitary confinement. And the author also goes on to say that racial animus is always present. And here's the statistic that I talked about earlier, where Virginia, where this author is now, has a general population that's 19% African American, but 58% of its prison population is black. And that is after adjusting. So.
Yes, and by the way, there are also plenty of people and plenty of cases of innocent people in jail that can't get a new hearing, that their parole boards are screwing them, that there are people in Baltimore literally in jail for 2 years without any charges against them. Same thing in St. Louis. When Ty and I were in jail, there were people in orange chains chained to each other that literally had no charges against them. So this is happening in America, not some other country. This is happening in America. So prison, the modern day slavery going on in those prisons, as well as innocent people in prison getting screwed and not able to actually get a fair hearing. Oh, look who it is. Tommy Tahifi Bayless.
Hi.
Good morning, playa. Happy birthday. I love you. 3 exclamation points and $20. Thank you very much, Tommy Tahifi Bayless. And by the way,
he gets this too.
Oh, yeah, Tommy gets that. Tommy, this GoFundMe, which you should see the link right there in the chat. This GoFundMe is so Tommy and myself, or Tommy and Jen, could get out in the field and cover the stories that no one else is covering. Ty Bayless, has done incredible work, including a documentary on prison bail reform. The bail system in this country is totally meant to stomp and strangle the poor so that they can't get out of jail, because most of these jails are becoming a for-profit system. Which, by the way, you know who wasn't against for-profit prisons during the 2016 campaign? One Hillary Clinton. Do you know who doesn't condemn for-profit prisons? The entire Democratic Party. Well, the progressives do, but the party as a whole. So we got a lot of work to do. Occupy New Paradigm says people have a real misconception about law enforcement and the courts because of TV. Couldn't agree more with that. And I just want to give a quick update because this is a GoFundMe birthday bash. Hint, hint. We are now at 3882, so higher than when we started. We'd like to get to over 5,000 by the end of this live stream. Definitely a tall task, but I think we could do it. So thanks to everyone who's contributing. 61 people have contributed to our GoFundMe in 8 days. So.
Oh, and Natalie's been posting our GoFundMe link on Facebook. Thank you so much, Natalie. It's people like you who share that really help us. People power.
And we'll play the video again a little later if you haven't seen the GoFundMe video. So let's get to the next story. I think it would work better. Oh, I'll read it from here. So also the prison strikes, which I was guilty. I didn't cover the prison strikes when they were happening
and it
a couple days ago.
Actually, who would know, but it ended the Sunday after September 10th.
Okay.
So
it recently ended then, like a couple days ago. So there were prisons.
But I couldn't even find articles from, it started in August. I couldn't find any updates except this one.
So there were prison strikes throughout the country. Obviously, they were striking. They weren't working, doing things like that. Who? I'm not. Oh,
So this was on
this is from incarceratedworkers.org.
the HuffPo, this one,
Oh.
the quote.
From HuffPost. Congress is oblivious to the prison strike. Lawmakers who oversee federal prison policy in the House of Representatives told HuffPost that they hadn't heard about any protests or strikes, which has been planned from August 21st through Sunday of September 10th. The demands immediate improvements to the conditions of prisons and prison policies that recognize the humanity of imprisoned men and women, an immediate end to prison slavery. All persons imprisoned in any place of detention under the United States jurisdiction must be paid the prevailing wage in their state or territory for their labor. The Prison Litigation Reform Act must be rescinded, allowing imprisoned humans a proper channel to address grievances and violations of their rights. The Truth in Sentencing Act and the Sentencing Reform Act must be rescinded so that imprisoned humans have a possibility of rehabilitation and parole. No human shall be sentenced to death by incarceration or serve any sentence without the possibility of parole. An immediate end to the racial overcharging, oversentencing, and parole denials of black and brown parole because the victims of the crime was white, which is a particular problem in southern states. An immediate end to racist gang enhancement laws targeting black and brown humans. No imprisoned human shall be denied access to rehabilitation programs at their place of detention because of their label as a violent offender. Pell Grants must be reinstated in all U.S. states and territories, and the voting rights of all confined citizens serving prison sentences, pretrial detainees, and so-called ex-felons must be counted. Representation is demanded. All voices count.
And you can go see that list at incarceratedworkers.org. They have a lot more information. Also, the marshallproject.org.
So this reminds me, Michael Moore, I think his last movie, not the one that's coming out now, was Who to Invade Next. And he goes around to other countries that basically do everything the right way when America does everything essentially for the donors. I forget the country, but one country that he highlighted that he went to their prison. And honestly, doesn't look like such a bad place.
The Netherlands, maybe?
Might have been the Netherlands. And there are violent people who committed murder. There are violent people who committed all sorts of things. But they're not actually behind bars. They're not actually
They're not dehumanized.
Like they are detained. They're not free. But they're not dehumanized. They have rehabilitation programs. They have nice conditions. They're treated well by the prison guards. And guess what? Their recidivism rate, meaning going back to prison, is extremely, extremely low. So it's a different mentality because it's not meant to crucify people at a basically lifelong stake, but it's meant to say, you know what, you committed a crime, so we are going to detain you for X amount of time based on the length, based on the crime, based on violence and this and that. But while you're here, we're going to treat you as human beings and try to put you back out in a way that you won't commit any more crimes. Because dare I say, if you treat people like humans, if you try to go after the thinking and the flawed mentality and in many cases psychological disorders that cause the crime, you're able to actually lower the crime rate because you have a lower recidivism rate. So I think it's it's definitely Where to Invade Next was the movie, and I believe it was the Netherlands that had this. But it's good that the prison strikes are happening because these people are being treated inhumanely. Yes, violence is not acceptable in a society, no matter what country, but if your true purpose is to lower crime, if your true purpose is to actually rehabilitate people, people aren't usually rehabilitated when they are treated as slaves and threatened on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Occupy, so I'd really like to hear your thoughts on AOC already capitulating to mainstream Dem interest. I'll get to that later. I know what you're talking about, but I wanna keep going with these.
She did backtrack on Blue no matter who.
Did she?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. We'll get to that. So, continuing on. And by the way, just as a reminder, folks, Super Chat is right here. People have been leaving contributions, and people have also left GoFundMe. So we're trying to get to over $5,000 by the end of this, even if I have to go while the lights go out and I have no more breath. We're going to keep going. You go to the next one.
Okay, so this one was really, really disturbing, and I had never heard of it. It doesn't surprise me, but I had never heard of it, and I doubt most people have. So this comes from projectcensored.org, which is actually great because every year they do a series of 25 underreported stories. So this one in particular, MIT Energy Initiative, almost entirely funded by oil and gas companies. So let that sink in. The very people, MIT, super smart school, super dedicated students and professors, they're being funded by fossil fuel companies. I mean, I just can't. So The Guardian reported, without the public's awareness, fossil fuel interests representing oil, gas, and coal companies, as well as utilities and investors, have colonized nearly every nook and cranny of energy and climate policy research in American universities. So when we see those studies come out telling us things, can we trust them? It seems like we cannot. And this comes from two researchers at Stanford University and MIT. Eric donated to the campaign. Thank you, Eric. We'll get to you in just a second. It goes on to say that fossil fuel interests dominate energy and climate policy research at a lot of places, not just MIT. This includes Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and the University of California, Berkeley. And so that, Berkeley is known for being super crunchy, super hippie, super into climate change in the earth and things like that. So, what's going on here? So the result is more than a conflict of interest, Franta and Supran reported. And those are the ones who are doing this piece at projectcensored.org. These are industry projects with the appearance of neutrality and credibility given by academia. They also noted that the fossil fuel industry often employs a tactic of claiming to promote a rational middle. So they're not all going rah-rah for themselves. They're doing the rational middle, kind of like the centrists do in other ways.
Kind of like Jake Tapper, your hero on CNN.
He's not my hero. I just think he's very nice and has a good heart. And he's cute.
Oh, God.
So they do the rational middle between total dependence and on renewable energy and total independence from fossil fuels. So corporate news coverage of how the fossil fuel industry has captured energy and climate policy research at universities basically doesn't even exist. So I doubt you've heard this before, and this should be everywhere. This news should be blasted from the mountaintops. It's disgusting.
And by the way, I just want to make a point because it's important to point out the corporate media too. And I'm going to get to the people who just contributed via GoFundMe as a quick update. Wow, we're already almost about to pass 4,000.
Yay!
So I think 8 or 9 people have already contributed during our live stream. It's not so far off. We could do 1,000 by the end of the day, I think.
I think so.
I think so.
Definitely.
Keep it coming, and we'll, yeah, they can. When you move to this. Yeah. So, almost at 4,000. But I want to make a point. Whether it's MIT, whether it's Harvard, all these places, guess what? Guess what? Corporate media is also...
Who said Jake Tapper isn't cute? No.
Corporate media is also funded by these oil and fossil fuel companies. When you see CNN, Jake Tapper be like, well, the activists say this, and the fossil fuel companies say this, and I don't know. Well, then you have CNN taking money from the American Petroleum Institute. Or you have places like Politico.com have event series with Bank of America. What does Bank of America do? They invest in the pipelines. You have Vox doing the explainers and Ezra Klein. That's wicked smart man. Their podcast that I once painfully listened to was sponsored by Goldman Sachs. The list goes on and on. Rachel Maddow, that liberal bastion. You could watch her on MSNBC if you're on a full stomach, definitely. And you'll get oil and fossil fuel commercials.
Or perhaps a commercial for just Hillary's book, but I digress.
Right. And it goes on and on. It goes on and on. At Morning Joe once I watched, and they said, this segment's brought to you by Wells Fargo. How are you supposed to be media when you are literally in bed with fossil fuel companies and banks? And by the way, I'm not demonizing. I have a few friends that work in banking. I shit on them all the time.
That's true, he
but
does.
all of these banks, not all, because some have been divesting, but many of the banks are invested in Dakota Access Pipeline, Keystone XL Pipeline, Bayou Bridge Pipeline. I could go on and on. Very dangerous things that are contributing to our global warming and climate change. And by the way, I made this point during CNN and MSNBC's coverage of Hurricane Florence, which seemed like they were a little disappointed.
Yeah, they were disappointed.
They sent out the army. Chris Cuomo was there. Chris Cuomo, Anderson Cooper, and all of them went out because they thought it was going to be like a Category 4 and 5, and then they were a little worried. I'm not minimizing it because it was definitely a big storm.
But they wanted to capitalize on it,
right?
Which is gross.
But they're interviewing the heads of energy companies who are there talking about power going out and electricity going out. Do they not find it ironic that they're interviewing the head of energy companies in Virginia and North Carolina who also own the very fracking and fossil fuel projects that are contributing to climate change, and the climate change is contributing to, dare I say it, extreme weather and hurricanes?
Yeah.
None of them even think about this because either they're too stupid or they're too happy lying in their beds filled with Benjamins at night. But they're interviewing heads of energy companies that are literally behind the pipelines, the fracking, and all of these things that are contributing to the greenhouse gas emissions, to the warming of the planet that is causing more and more Category 3, Category 4, Category 5 storms. Trump said one thing that was correct. Puerto Rico got hit by 2 hurricanes in a span of 2 weeks. That kind of things don't happen 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
You want to say something?
No, I agree.
So definitely read the fine print because, by the way, not only do these MIT, Harvard studies go out there from MIT and Harvard, but then their articles after articles are written by Huffington Post, by journalists, by Politico, by Vox.
Yeah. When you see the name Harvard or a Stanford study, everyone, I think even people who are really, really look into things are like, oh, that's fine. I can totally trust that because it's Harvard, because it's Stanford, because it's Berkeley. And so we can't trust, well, really anything. We can trust status quo, though. We
can. And as a reminder, all of this, the Crown, the GoFundMe, is to launch Status Quo, the website. When would you say the website's going to launch?
To be determined, but the start of next month to the middle-ish, depending on certain things that are exciting things.
Yes, and you'll understand why we waited to launch the website when a certain story we're working on publishes. We've been waiting for a reason.
Yeah, and we know you guys are tired of not seeing it, and believe us, we're tired of you not seeing it too.
Yes.
We want you to see it so bad.
Yes, and definitely share this on Facebook. It's incredible. I have 20,700 likes on Facebook, yet I have 10 viewers at a time.
And I shared it to a bunch of groups.
And I love my 10 and 11 viewers on Facebook, but
Yay.
We should have more. So, Colin Tooley, one of our video editors, I'm excited.
Colin's the very best in the whole world.
What's our next story?
Our next story actually ties into climate change. And this is actually close to where I live. I live in Maryland, and this is the Chesapeake region. So Deal Island and other islands like Smith Island, they're literally sinking. And if you guys don't know anything about Maryland, it's a very fishing, crabbing, watery sort of place. People really built the industry around being watermen. But these islands are sinking into nothing. They're going away because of climate change. And so this is actually an NBC News piece about Deal Island, which again is sinking due to climate change. So they say that the bay water around Deal Island and others could grow 2 feet by 2050 and another 3 feet or more by, how would you even say that, 2100 models predict. And so at that point, Deal Island would literally disappear. And these aren't heavily populated islands at all. A lot of people have moved away. The culture has changed. But what's interesting about these islands is that they're extremely conservative. They even have like British accents essentially because they're so isolated. At least on Smith Island, I'm not sure about Deal, but they don't want to move away. They don't believe in climate change. Often they're very Trump fans. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic where the scientists go in and study this stuff and try to come up with plans and figure things out to save this island. And they don't realize that the very people, the people who live on the islands, they don't realize the people they're cheering for are the reason their beautiful islands are going away. So, yeah, someone was quoted here in this article as saying, for residents, the time to defend their home is now. So those denying that this is happening, the time is now. Unlike in other natural disasters like hurricanes that ravaged Houston and Puerto Rico this year, forcing families to act out of desperation, the residents on Deal Island and others are preparing for the impending loss by building physical barriers. So those are one of the things that they're trying to do, but it's like bailing out a boat with a tiny little bucket that has a bunch of holes in it, It just doesn't work. And so over the past 5 years, an outline has taken shape to try to save this island, and it has about 1,000 residents. But they're not sure what to do because they have to educate the people who live there. They have to battle something that seems right now to be unwinnable, which is really, really sad.
Cheryl says same thing is happening on Easter Island, which has prisoners on the island.
Oh, yeah. So the hope is to preserve Deal just as other coastal communities are weighing their own future. It ends by talking about predicting how sea levels will change is not guaranteed, but scientific models through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers show that even in a best case situation, waters in the Chesapeake are set to continue rising another 1 to 2 feet by the year 2100 and could top as much as 5.5 feet. I can't even imagine that for not just that area, but just how devastating the weather could get and how everything would just be decimated. So, yeah, I don't know what you make of that, about these tiny communities, but also the big communities. We have all these hurricanes coming. There are so many signs, and yet people still don't believe it.
It goes to the same thing that I said when I was at the Young Turks, and it goes to the same thing that I'm saying now. There's a war on the poor. It's not a coincidence that most of these dangerous things are happening where poor people live or in communities that don't have a lot of people. Reminder of Standing Rock. Standing Rock, the pipeline, Dakota Access Pipeline, was originally supposed to go through Bismarck, much higher population, and 97% white. And they rerouted that thing so quickly, your head can spin, borrowing from my friend Donald Trump. Kidding. So to, a lower population and indigenous people. And now you're seeing in smaller communities that don't know any better, them doing these kinds of things. That's why it's so important. I'm not trying to toot our own horn here, but you really, really need to get coverage of these things. You need to get media attention on these things, bodies on the ground, interviewing residents, because I promise you a lot of times when I go out into places, half the residents don't even know these things are happening.
Yay, Jean. Cheryl, that's interesting. So you were on Easter Island and the security people were looking at passports and bare feet. Interesting.
And I just want to give an update. We're almost at 4,000. So who's going to put us at 4,000?
Yay.
You could do it. We're at 3982. I think we started at 36 something. So
yeah.
We're moving here. Definitely the next contribution or the next two could put us over 4,000. So keep it coming. What's his face? Aiden just donated and wrote, Thank you for covering important stories other people don't. My main concern is climate change, and your coverage of Standing Rock was amazing. Universities in UK are also subsidized by oil and gas. Fracking is about to take off big time in the UK, with the national government running roughshod over local government and people to push it through. On top of this, they're cutting support for green energy. Madness! Exclamation point. Or I kind of want to imitate him. Madness in the UK. It's interesting you say that, Aiden. And by the way, Aiden, that's my cousin's name too, so you got that in common. Because when I was at the Young Turks, I was actually, towards the end, thinking about actually going to the UK to do reporting on not only Jeremy Corbyn, and the uprising in the UK and
Love
Brexit,
Corbyn.
but to actually awakening more Americans to, hey, this is possible. Progressive movement could actually be winning, whether it's referendums like Brexit or national leaders like Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, he might be the next prime minister. That's why they keep tar and feathering him with all this ridiculousness that he's anti-Semitic and all this nonsense. So you never know. Status quo. We got to crawl before we can walk. So
Yeah.
we're definitely going to be covering stuff in America for the most part. But we might go international sometimes because there's a lot of things going on around the world, either caused by America or that America can learn from.
Exactly. Absolutely.
All right, next. And we're almost at 4,000, so keep it coming.
Actually, I want to start this one by sharing a little anecdote. So this one is about, actually, this is our 7th story that we're covering so far. So
32 undercovered stories for my
those-
32nd birthday.
For those
Double
just
whammy for 32.
For those just joining us, we're doing 32 stories that are undercovered. So ICE children, so basically children taken by ICE, ending up in Michigan. And so we, as you know, go to Michigan to report on the Flint water crisis. And we actually ended up at an Airbnb where there's a lawyer who's amazing. He's just such an amazing guy. And he told us about this story. And actually, Jordan and Ty did the interview with him about children being taken from their parents. And there's really this kind of funnel set up that's not in the best interest of the children or the parents. It's in the best interest of foster care and then a for-profit system.
And churches.
And churches are involved, yeah. And I mean, I hate to say it, but it sounds a hell of a lot like trafficking to me. Legal trafficking.
That's what it is, yeah.
It's awful, just horrifying. So we'll have to find that video and link it because that interview is really good with Jeff. But it was kind of like kismet that we ended up at his home. Yeah. So here the thing is that there are good people at the end of this. There are people in Michigan who are helping the children, who are trying to do everything that they can do. But there was one woman, so this is in the Free Press in Michigan, freep.com. A Homeland Security official told them, "We are not separating babies from parents." Yet, in the middle of the night, 2 baby boys arrived in Grand Rapids after being separated from their immigrant parents at the southern border weeks ago. One child is 8 months old. The other is 11 months old. And both children have become part of a bigger group of 50 immigrant children who have landed in foster care in Western Michigan under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance border policy. So, when they talk about the missing children, we can't find them, I have a pretty good idea of where they might be and who might be profiting off of these babies. And it's absolutely just horrifying to even think about. According to Mills, some of these displaced children got picked up right at the airport by a foster family, while others wound up at a foster care center begging to talk to their parents. So those who are able to talk, they're old enough to talk, begging for their parents. Many have gone 30 days or more without talking to their parents because their parents couldn't be located. Imagine that. Mills, who worked with displaced immigrant children for 6 years, said the foster agency is dealing with a new troubling element: getting unaccompanied children on the phone with their parents. Typically, this takes about 3 days, but now it's taking up to a month or more because the parents are detained and the agency can't locate them. Now, this article is from June, but you can bet that many of these children are gone forever. They're literally sold and gone, and will never see their parents again.
Yes. Is there a way of doing what you did last time with the Periscope?
What do you mean?
Inviting other followers and all that kind of stuff?
I did that already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. And honestly, it's a sign of our totally ADD corporate media that in the beginning, I thought the corporate media covered this pretty well. They weren't necessarily covering the foster child part of it, but they were covering the inhumane separation of children and their parents at the border. But Trump kind of like deflected onto something else, and they've largely forgotten it.
Yeah.
And there's still, I believe it's hundreds of children that still haven't been reunited with their family Not to mention, the foster care system in America should not be for profit, or any country. I mean, obviously, people who work there get paid, but there shouldn't be like this privatization with churches involved and all this.
Right.
And the churches, and also, I don't know if you mentioned, but they also are obviously discriminating against gay couples and other couples like that, where foster kids can't go with those couples based on Christian fundamentalism and nonsense like that. So it's terrible. And imagine, I mean, yes, it is traumatic to be separated from your child family and become a foster kid, even without it happening from government recklessness like Trump. But in those cases, it's because there is no other choice,
Right.
In these cases, there is a choice, reuniting them. And they shouldn't be going into like the church system, because a lot of these, if the church system is placing them, then they're probably going to be, in many cases, indoctrinated by their new family.
Well, exactly, and that was one of the issues that Jeff brought up. Is I think that the majority of these children were being raised by Catholic families, and these are Protestant, I believe, that are taking them. So I cannot. It's horrifying. There are no words for this story.
Eliana on Twitter. Happy birthday, Jordan. To celebrate, I donated to the Status Quo GoFundMe.
Yay!
Thank you very much, Eliana. Appreciate it. Once again, let's see if we got any movement here. We're almost at 4,000 on the GoFundMe. We've gone up, I believe, 200 while we've been live. So let's keep it going.
And keep sharing this live stream, whether you're on Facebook, Periscope, Twitter, whatever, YouTube. Share it.
No, it's not YouTube. It's YouTube. Because YouTube is suppressing content so you can't see it. So it's for the few. We are when we have our website.
Talk to YouTube
what are our plans for our website?
Oh, we're going to make it a one-stop shop. You guys can just come watch it. You'll get notifications. Everything will work as if it's, just like it's supposed to.
And we're going to be going live pretty much the same time every day. So it's going to be appointment, internet, and we'll be live the same time every day. Obviously, when we're in the field, sometimes we won't be live at the same time, depending on interviews and what we're covering. But we're going to be live essentially the same time every day. So you guys, and also you're going to get notifications when we're live from our site. So we don't have to worry about whether YouTube is sending you notifications or not. Laura says, living in Michigan and knowing what I know about Davos, I had to believe that the situation is connected to her and her adoption agency, that I believe is located somewhere in the Grand Rapids area.
Laura, can you email Jordan at protonmail.com and send me info on that, because I want to know more.
Yes. And by the way, don't get Jen started on the churches in America. It's very, very, that's one of your big stories.
Yeah. I mean, well, what are you talking about? The Catholic Church?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, actually, it's just kind of blown wide open. But the Catholic Church, I don't know if you guys saw The Keepers on Netflix. I think it came out 1 or 2 years ago, where there's just this rampant sexual abuse in the Catholic schools. And so since I live in Maryland, I plan on really digging in and potentially being offed by digging in, as people have been. But it's important because this abuse goes on in so many places, and the churches are just a cesspool.
So we're an hour and 15 minutes into our marathon. How long do you want us to go today?
Forever.
How long do you want us to go live? We got many stories to come.
I never want our faces to leave.
Laura, I very rarely get notifications from YouTube, and quite often can't find your live feeds when I go searching for them. Interesting.
Laura.
I would email YouTube on your behalf, Laura. But if you had to read the things YouTube tells us, you'd go throw up.
Yeah, and actually they say have you guys write them if you're having trouble getting notifications from our thing. So
yes, feel free to tell YouTube to stop the corporate censorship for your overlords. I digress. What's next?
The next one is actually probably something all of you have dealt with if you live in America. So health insurance companies dictating healthcare, and I actually just went through this. So I don't mind sharing that I have depression, and so my psychiatrist prescribed me a new medication. And because of the health insurance, he had to move me up way too fast on this medication. So my health care wasn't dictated by my psychiatrist. It was dictated by Cigna. I'll call them out. It was Cigna. So, and then it actually like made me much more depressed to go up that high, and my side effects were worse.
So basically they wouldn't cover it unless they moved you up.
Yeah, they wouldn't cover, the treatment. They wouldn't cover it unless I moved up. So I'll get more into that story. I know you can all relate. Let's see here.
Cheryl wants us to go 10 hours. Cheryl, I will go 10 hours if you order me Empanada Mama. It's on Allen Street in New York City. I'd like 4.
But you cannot give them your address.
I'd like 5 cheese empanadas. Yeah, I can't give them the address.
No.
Okay.
Leave them at the corner, the Target on Grand Street. Okay. This one's from Newsweek. And insurance providers are increasingly refusing to cover prescribed treatments for many patients with chronic conditions, even when they have fully paid their premiums. If Congress, and then talks about Congress and their healthcare reforms. Basically, let's skip that because that is just about Congress. So, U.S. News and Health Report, insurance companies often use a practice called prior authorization. I know that's a very familiar thing for all of you. To avoid paying for a specific treatment or medication, this process requires your doctor to request approval from your insurance company before prescribing a specific medication or treatment. So it doesn't matter if your doctor thinks that's the best treatment for you or not. It's up to the insurance company in the end. The treatment your doctor prescribed will only be covered if the insurance company approves it based on their own policies and often without considering your clinical history. While insurers argue that prior authorization helps weed out medical errors and limits overprescription, studies show it can lead to slower and less effective treatment and an increased burden and cost on physicians. Another thing that they do, and I also get chronic migraines, and so this is something they did with me a lot. So to cut costs, insurers often use step therapy or fail first policies. So for example, Botox is one of the newest, it's not super new now, but recommended treatments for migraines. But I had to have migraines more than 15 times a month, and I had to have failed 3 different classes of migraine preventative medication before I could get Botox covered. Now, Botox did not work for me, and I hate it because I couldn't move my forehead. I don't have it right now. But now there's this new one, you guys.
Boo Botox.
You guys may have heard about that's like this new breakthrough treatment, FDA approved. So now for that one, I had to have more than 15 migraine days per month, failed 3 classes of medication, and failed Botox before I can get to the new one. It's ridiculous. So
basically they want you to do everything that's going to make you worse until they'll cover it.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many off-label, I've been on things for seizures. I've been on off-label for depression meds, not for depression, but for the migraines. The craziest, my medicine cabinet, someone said, don't toss old meds in the toilet. I just have them all in a box, and the box is this enormous. Anyway.
Natalie on Facebook wrote, "No shit. I have a friend who has to see long distance out of one eye and up close out of the other because his insurance company will only let him get one eye fixed at a time and will determine for him when he gets the other done. Maybe when he's dead. In the meantime, he can't see that too well and is driving like that."
Wow.
I'd like to go talk to your friend in the field, Natalie. You know how I could do that? We have a GoFundMe going. I would love to cover a story like that in the field and talk to people like that. Yes. We're almost at 4,000. Can we get 4,000 in the next 5 minutes? I wish we could do
Natalie, have your friend email us that story. Email Jordan at protonmail.com.
Email Jordan at protonmail.com so we could get more information to cover a lot of these stories. Because as a reminder, folks,
are telling me
we're not only asking for your funding, we're asking for your stories. We get a lot of stories from viewers.
Yeah. People are telling me weed. I'm down with the weed. I got it.
Oh, Jen, I don't like the weed.
What?
I personally don't like weed. No, I'm not against it.
No comment.
For me, it makes me hungry, and I eat Taco Bell. Part of the reason I have a colon infection, by the way, I was out for a few days because
changing the subject.
I have a colon infection.
Jordan is pro.
Is because I've had some bad eating habits over the years, and whenever I've inhaled marijuana, it's made me eat Taco Bell and bad food, and I've been bloated and gross.
And it makes you enjoy riding on rivers.
Yellow Sun, hi Jordan and everyone, and by the way, happy birthday, Jordan, with some fantastic emojis for cake. Oh, I want cake now.
You're getting cake.
Laura?
Yes, Laura, definitely. Please do.
No, for the audience, you should read their comments.
They can read. Oh, because the other people. Okay, Laura says, I found some holistic remedies that work great for migraine, Jen. More than happy to email you the info. Please do. Email Jordan at protonmail.com.
And by the way, when I had, when was it? Was it when I had like 103 fever? I don't remember when, but I had my first migraine.
He knows, Joanna. He's fake news.
I had my first migraine a couple of weeks ago. I think you were there. And I really feel for Jen and other people who have migraines because that was the worst 20 minutes of my life. It's almost like your brain is literally tearing in real time and just like little mini fires going on. It's terrible. So, and it's outrageous that insurance companies, and I think this is why we cover Bernie Sanders' fight for Medicare for all and progressives' fight for Medicare for all. Oh, my uncle just texted me, happy birthday, Jordanian, they call me, and all this. This is why we need Medicare for all. We need to get rid of the mental sickness in this country, brought to you as part of the United Corporations of America, that, healthcare is a privilege, and you're not entitled to healthcare. No, you are. Because if you're going to live in a civilized society, that means you care about other human beings. And human beings get sick. And human beings have cancers and autoimmune illnesses and handicaps and also mental health, which Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan is not just for physical health, but for mental health, as well as dental. So I could tell you plenty of people I've met in Flint that have lost all their teeth because of lead poisoning, among other things. So very important.
It's very sad. Yeah, just to finish up this story, the insurer will only cover the medication prescribed by your doctor after the first drug fails. This means insurance companies can force patients to take ineffective medications for months or even years before agreeing to cover the treatment the doctor initially prescribes, which puts the patient's health at risk. So despite being prescribed the medication by your doctors, they can also force you to switch to a similar medication. I know some people, the real one, what do you call it? Not the off-brand, not the generic, but the name brand is the only one that works for them. And they are forced by their insurance companies to switch to the generic, and it no longer works. So it's because they use different fillers and things like that. Insurance companies across the country offer low reimbursement rates for psychologists and psychiatrists, leading growing numbers of therapists to even refuse to take insurance. So then what do people do? And in some cases, insurance companies refuse them. So it's a big mess, and that's why we need Medicare for all. Say it in Bernie's voice.
We need Medicare for all. In a civilized country. No, I'm not. I don't have a good Bernie impression.
You do.
In a civilized society, healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. Healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. It is a disgrace in our society.
Now you sound like Kennedy.
Every industrial country in the world covers healthcare for its people as a human right and not a privilege. It is a disgrace. Tell me if you like my Bernie.
But you guys heard the Kennedy in there for a bit?
Yes. I keep getting happy birthdays. You know what? Happy birthday. And I want to make a formal announcement that we have now reached over $4,000 for our Patreon in just 8 days. Thank you to Endo, who just contributed $10 and I think put us over the edge. He says, let's roll the coup.
Yeah, I like that, Endo.
And that's what this is all about, baby. Status coup. And maybe let's take a break from the stories and tell them about all the adventures trying to come up with a name for this. You want some behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a nightmare to come up with a name that you could trademark. A good name.
Right.
A name that actually matches who we are.
It was a nightmare.
And by the way, I'm brilliant because I came up with this one.
Well, not exactly the truth.
It is, but go ahead.
Okay, I guess it's technically the truth, but not all the way the truth.
Thank you, Endo, by the way. Continue.
I don't even know where to start. Okay, so we had all these...
Johanna wants, oh yes, please share the brand story.
Which is what I'm doing and you just stopped me from.
Okay, let's tell them the other names we considered.
So Cabal was one of them. And just because there was something like, yeah, Kennedy.
I do have back pain. He had a lot of back pain.
He did. He had a back thing and he hit it.
And he took a lot of drugs.
Yeah, he did.
I'm not on drugs though.
Jordan's very.
I'm only on Nexium
he won't
for
even
acid
take
reflux.
Ibuprofen. It's very weird. Colin. Okay, what was I talking about? I have no idea. Oh, the brand. Okay, so we had names like Cabal.
Cabal wasn't the first name we wanted. So the name.
Oh.
Not that.
Okay, I got it.
Not that. In the end, I'm happy we ended up with Status Coup. But the first name that I really wanted was Heist. We wanted to name this Heist because I think the United States is basically a heist. It is a giant bank robbery that stole your money over the last 30 years, even before Reagan it started happening. And we wanted to name ourselves Heist because there is nothing I can think of that encapsulates everything. The banks, the lobbyists, the media, the corporations, then it's a one giant heist. That name was taken 6 months ago.
Yeah, so actually it was my fault. I didn't do, we did the precursory, is that a word?
Trademark search.
Yeah, trademark search. And we didn't find anything similar. I didn't find anything similar. But then, so we went through the process and we initiated the trademark research with a real company, which I never said I was an expert at trademark research. So they came back and said, no, there's someone who just registered it or just started the process. And it was so soon, it wasn't that long ago. So we were devastated, but enough time had passed that they had missed a step and they hadn't taken the next action. So we were yeah, we can get this name, we can do it. So we emailed the guy, we tracked down the lawyer who did the name. I even called the trademark agency and was is there any way we can get this and how? And then one day Jordan's I looked up the address of the guy who had filed this name. And I was Jordan, he's in the city. So Jordan's give me the address. So he runs down. He literally goes right away. And he hops in a cab. He goes up and finds the guy. And I don't know if you knocked on the door and there he was. And you're can I have your name?
That's
I
how
don't know. Give it to me.
Nah, he was one of these guys that worked in a... WeWorks, which is a co-ed working space. Co-op. So he was in a little corner. It was not a very tiny little office. He could barely fit his legs. And I was hey, I'm the guy that's been emailing you 15 times to see if you're actually going to use this.
We really want it.
And we're all, I'd be willing to negotiate to try and buy it from you. I wasn't going to pay much. And he gave me the death stare and told me I'll talk to my client. And then emailed me later telling me no. So that was Heist. What was the next name?
I think it was Cabal, but I can't remember the timeline.
Probably.
Yeah, so Cabal, I still think we could have gotten that one. But that was going to be about the cabal of the oligarchy, essentially, and how we were going to rise up journalistically against that. And there were some that were kind of close, and so the lawyer we conferred with said, it's 50-50. So we just decided to kind of move on. And then I don't even know if there were any other top contenders, but those stand out.
I think the final two, because I always...
No Endo with a C for sure.
No, not KKK Cabal Endo. Stop causing trouble. The final, I always, if I had a media company, wanted to name it The People. I always wanted to name it The People. I know it sounds corny, but We the People. But what I believe and what I try to show as a journalist is I try to tell the stories of actual people rather than pundits and experts and all the coastal elites that you see on CNN and MSNBC. So I thought it would be a really good name and really just show who we are to name it The People. Unfortunately, I don't think People Magazine would like that.
Little magazine that you may have heard of.
Yeah.
Called People Magazine.
You can't name anything People and not be sued for a lot of money because People Magazine has that trademarked backwards and forward. So the people wasn't going to happen. And then we kind of were throwing around a lot of names, and I wanted something that was kind of a spin-off of status quo, because I think...
That's not the whole story.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so we actually subscribed to this naming service where it's kind of like 99 Designs, if you guys have ever used that, but you submit what you want, you give them like the theme and the tone and the thing of what you want. So these people were going to submit name ideas for the company. And we ended up getting some good ideas. It was really hard because we'd go back and forth, and like one of us would like one of us would like one minute and then not the next. But finally there was one, and I can't even remember what he called it, but it sparked the idea in Jordan for status coup. So that's how it came about. That's its birth.
And my only concern with it was, well, I'm going to be attacked anyway, just because I'm always attacked by, the asshole corporate journalists. Oh, you're biased, you're a Bernie bro, whatever. But I didn't want to be attacked as being a news organization that, they're suggesting a coup d'etat and violence and all that. So that's why, because, normally in history, coup d'etats tended to be they didn't exactly bring spoons to the fight, But I always say this is not an actual coup as in go get your bows and arrows. This is a journalistic coup d'etat. Non-violent, we are going to challenge power non-violently. And we are going to threaten power with facts and truth and hard work. So that's where status coup came from. There were a bunch of contenders before that, but, I guess in a way everything happens for a reason. So yes. And just so I could take a quick, what about taglines? Got ideas? Hey, Johanna, Look at the top of the page. Look at the top of the YouTube page. Our tagline is giving the microphone back to the people.
Yay.
Give the microphone back to the people. That's the tagline. I wanted something simple and heartfelt, and that's what I really believe. I try to give the microphone back to the people. Because you want to know something? When I first joined the Young Turks, I got autonomy to do really what I thought should be done. But originally, they wanted me to contribute more. They wanted me to interview on the campaign trail pundits and campaign advisors and all that stuff. And I said, well, how about I try interviewing people? Because nobody actually interviews people on the campaign trail. And then I went from the campaign trail to covering actual stories from people. I got the East Chicago lead crisis, for example. A viewer told me about this. I went and I met with the viewer, and then I went to go cover the crisis. I heard about Standing Rock first, not from a hashtag, but from viewers. And for the most part, I interview people, and because I think you get the truth from activists. I think you get the truth from residents. I think you get the truth from people on the ground, community organizers, not pundits, not experts, not political advisors, because they tend to lie. They tend to spin, if you haven't noticed. So that's the tagline, giving the microphone back to the people. And as we go out in the field more, it will grow. From ugly yellow chairs, we'll maybe one day have a studio and actual production, so we could spruce this up a little more. But this is what this is about. Gilliam says, coup d'etat is overthrow of the state or establishment, but does not have to invoke violence. Take it from a Frenchman. But yes, they would probably smear you nonetheless. I'm very upset you said that, because when you mentioned Frenchmen, I immediately thought of the first time I had bread in France, because I'm quite hungry right now, and I really want a croissant, but I digress. So, Yellow Sun, so true, Jordan, you rock, hashtag back to the people. Couldn't have said it better. Coochie, coochie, coo. Okay, I don't know what that means, but I like it. So, again, when we started this live stream at 2:30, we're now an hour and a half in. We said we want to get to 5,000. We just crossed 4,000. It is a definitely bold attempt to get to 5,000. Maybe playing the GoFundMe videos one more time to show you.
Let's definitely do that. I also want to remind people that if you donate $100 or more, you get a Status Coup t-shirt.
Or hat.
You can choose. If you donate $127 or more, you get Notice 27 from Bernie.
And by the way, we don't want to make people feel bad who can't contribute. If you have economic problems, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, we totally understand. If all you could do is share the video, that's fine. So we don't want to,
Hold on, you cut me off.
Sorry.
If you donate $127 or more, you get a T-shirt and a hat. Status Coup. You'll be one of the first to ever have one.
Oh, go get the hat so they could see. It's on
Well,
in
there's
my. Yeah, go ahead.
The
There,
blue one.
there you go. So you could get a hat, you could get a shirt. I'm feeling pretty bowler. Or a crown. Do you want a Status Coup crown? We could get you a Status Coup crown.
Potentially.
We got the world's smallest hat. Jen's about to wear it.
Trying to. It is very small.
Hold on.
It's so small.
That's fine. You could be wearing this badass hat.
But it also have the other colors in the logo too.
Yes, so we have it in blue, we have it in black. We're going to be ordering different designs and things like that. But this is the one we started out with, Status Coup.
It needs to be bent.
Ooh, I love it.
Bent.
And it's a conversation starter too. If you're looking to meet someone, people will be like, "What's Status Coup?" And then you can tell them
Coup.
and spread the word of our company. This is going to be a grassroots revolution. So let's play the video for those who haven't seen it yet. This is the video that Ty put together. Here we go. Make sure that's down. Make sure that's up. Hold on. Oh, hold on. Hold on. Farewell. Okay.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly says I look cute in the hat.
Is Jordan Charity, and this is the GoFundMe in the build-up to Status Coup. Status Coup is our independent news outlet that we're looking to launch next month that is, very simply put, a journalistic coup d'etat of the status quo.
The Trump administration,
President Trump's chief defender, and Donald Trump has managed to do that.
63 million Americans went out and voted for Donald Trump.
You see what the corporate media has been covering the last 3 years. It is a goddamn circus. We're looking to raise $50,000 so we can get back in the field and stay out there as long as it takes to cover the stories that you so desperately need to see. Corruption, environmental genocide, police brutality against minorities, and economic brutality against those same people. I want to show you not just the federally corrupt politicians, but the corrupt politicians all over this country on a local and state level. It's going to take a lot more than me. We're going to have other reporters, other photojournalists, but most importantly, getting out there costs a lot of money. And that's why most news outlets, besides the fact that their parent companies don't want them to expose the oligarchy, that's why they don't go out and do it. It's a lot easier for them to say, Democrat A in the left box, Republican B in the right box, attractive anchor in the middle, let's have a food fight while we bridge to the next Viagra commercial. We're not interested in that. We are going to get out there before the rest of the cameras come, and we're going to go back when all the cameras leave. So the country know about what's going on in Chicago.
The rest of the country should know that we get treated unfairly, we get killed for no reason, unjustly, and we don't get justice for these murders, and we need it. It has to stop.
What about the family members of the people who have died? What about them? Who's going to stand up for them? What's going to happen here? Who's going to be held accountable?
People are waiting online for 3 hours just to get bottled water. We are very simply asking for your help. It costs money to do this in a real independent way where we are not indebted to big dollar donors, corporations, or other funders that don't share our values. We're going to be offering to you what you already know me for. Getting out there, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, whether it's a holiday, and whether anyone else is covering it or not. I want to show you the next Standing Rock when it's still possible to reverse it. It costs money. Flights, hotels, rent-a-cars, food, last-minute equipment needs, and a whole lot of other miscellaneous things that pop up when you're out reporting. So, how can you help? Whether it's $1, $5, $10, more. Think about the news and the world you want to see created. Think about how we could do it. We're trying to build a community. We're trying to build an independent news army. We're looking to raise $50,000 so we can get back in the field and stay out as long as it takes. You already know the stories that I'm passionate about and will get out in the field and cover, but you're going to be seeing that from me and many more as we build and grow. Thank you so much for your support, and together we will create the media revolution desperately needed in this country.
I want to thank Yellow Sun, who contributed while that video was playing $100. I don't know if she contributed because the video inspired her or because of this wonderful hat Jen is donning that somebody, Endo, wrote. Jen looks stunning in the hat. So
Thank
there you go.
Endo.
We are going to go through all the contributions and who left 100 or who left 127. If you leave 100 or if you leave 127, you're going to get either 100, one, so you pick the hat or the shirt, or 127, you get both. And how are we going to do that? They're going to email us?
Yeah, you have to email us your mailing address at emailjordan@protonmail.com.
So let us put it in here right now. Email. Not in all caps. What are we doing here? Hold on. Email Jordan at protonmail.com. And we'll be putting out quite a lot.
People are asking, is there any way to have the Status Coup logo be at the beginning rather than Anderson Cooper? I think that's a good idea.
Yes.
We'll have to figure that out.
Well, we'll work on that because it's interesting. I didn't think of that. We're calling it Status Coup, but then we have good old Andy Cooper.
Anderson.
So yeah, we'll change the thumbnail. And thank you. Hey, I don't think it's so unrealistic. We might get to 5,000 today. We're already at 4,117.
It's amazing.
And we had 67 people so far that have contributed. So can't thank you guys enough. 68 people. And 50,000 is a very, very big goal. Like, let's keep it real, okay? We're being suppressed on YouTube and Facebook, so half the people don't even know we have a GoFundMe going on.
Right.
Places like the Young Turks and other outlets who have done big campaigns, shall we say, have a much bigger audience, so they're able to get to their goal a lot quicker. But we're going to keep trucking along. I mean, not every day is my birthday, so I won't have a good angle for this. But we're going to try not to bug and do it too much. But, I would rather, quote-unquote, beg people than corporations. I'd rather beg progressives and audiences that share our values for the types of stories than people, like BuzzFeed to give me money or Politico to give me money, or I don't want that. So I've seen some people tweeting in the past, "Oh, Jordan, you're an out-of-work person begging for money." Yeah, if I have to beg the people, I certainly will. Devin left $2. I'll increase my Patreon later. Keep your head up. Thank you so much. And by the way, as a reminder, this is a super chat at YouTube. So, feel free, whether it's GoFundMe or the super chat. We're trying to definitely boost the GoFundMe, but if it's more convenient for you, super chat, you can do that too.
Super duper.
And thanks to everyone who keeps sending in the birthday wishes. It's a little uncomfortable for me because I'm not actually a narcissist, so I don't love celebrating myself, but hey.
It's true, he's not. It's also true that he's also not.
I don't know what that means, but anyway, back to the list of stories that are undercovered and that we'd like to cover, which is part of what the GoFundMe is for. The 50,000 is going. If you read the link to the GoFundMe, there's a wish list of stories we'd like to cover, but there's other stories that are going to pop up as we go along that we want to get out there and cover. And a big part of this GoFundMe is to get out in the field and cover these stories and stay out there as long as it takes.
Teresa's doing a TV show, Endo. So 9 and 10, if you want to take those two.
Sure. Where does it start?
Right here.
So, missing and murdered Indigenous women and missing and murdered Indigenous children. While I was at Standing Rock, you could only cover so many things at once. There was a big epidemic, not just the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, but other Indigenous tribes, of kidnapped women. A lot of these women are raped, and nobody knows where they are, and they have to be presumed dead, and they're missing for years and years and years. They're being kidnapped off of reservations. It's a very, very tragic thing, and like everything else, the Native American people are essentially treated as an afterthought, even though they are the rightful founders of our country. So you have, this is just...
Yeah, there's no notes for that.
Yeah, so I would love to go cover that because honestly, it is a really, really it's the same thing that goes to what you were talking about before with the those small communities. These people, indigenous people, whether it's the pipeline threatening them or their own communities that they're being kidnapped from others, it's not getting any attention, and that's why it keeps happening, because there's no cameras on it, there's no attention on it. And I mean, you're not talking a small amount of women that have been kidnapped. You're talking in the thousands all across America. Collins Tooley says, I stayed on a Native American reservation for a week. It's a huge problem, and they have to just accept it as normal life now.
It's terrible.
Yeah, so I would love to get out and cover that. I think it's it goes, when I was at Standing Rock, it was very encouraging that the whole world gathered around Native Americans to fight the pipeline. But it's not just pipelines these Native Americans are facing. It's kidnapping, it's sexual assault, it is an epidemic of poverty brought on by the federal government. It's the dishonoring the treaties. One of the ideas I had for Status Coup when we get the funding is to actually do a reservation tour, to go to many different reservations. Obviously, you have to respect people's privacy. There are certain ceremonies they don't want you to videotape, and there's certain things that they don't want shown, and I respect that. But I would love to show you different reservations and the poverty, the racism they deal with. If you remember at the Young Turks, I did a little undercover video at a Walmart. I had hey, this is Jordan from Real American News, and that video did pretty well. But it was showing you how racist people just 45 minutes down the road are towards Native American people. And Carrie says, yes, we've been hearing that the Native American women are being abused severely. Alaska, too.
Johnny said that sometimes YouTube has stolen people's Super Chat funds. We have not had that issue at all.
But I know Jamal Thomas has, so fight the man. Fight YouTube.
Yeah, but I don't want people to not donate because of that.
Yeah,
no one knows what's going on with other people's situations.
But we've gotten, they haven't stolen our Super Chat money.
They have not. Okay, so the next is the Syrian gas fake news.
Yes. So obviously, Trump has now bombed Syria twice. Citing Assad gassing his people. Well, at least the last time, and in my view, the last two times, there was no evidence to support. That Assad gassed his people. Assad had already won the war, basically. The Syrian government had defeated the rebel groups, and they were beginning negotiations. So tactically and strategically, it never made sense. Why would Assad then gas his people if he's about to wrap this thing up? But you started seeing reports, Assad gassed his people. Well then, and by the way, America, with the propaganda from the neocons and the corporate media reporting this without any evidence, basically was urging Trump to strike, citing, this is the day he became the president, you heard on CNN.
Oh, my God.
This is the most presidential thing Donald Trump did, because it's always presidential to bomb the hell out of brown people and people in the Middle East. It's always presidential to kill and threaten innocent people around the world for the sake of democracy, right? But the other thing was, inspectors had not even gone in yet before we bombed Syria. And guess what? When they did go in, they found that it was chlorine, not nerve agents, not sarin gas, but chlorine. And it wasn't even, it was not clear who deployed the chlorine, because there's also the issue of the white helmets, which are funded by the State Department.
Oh, you'll get a bunch of people come out and bash if you talk bad about the white helmets and their Emmy wins or Oscar wins or whatever they are. Awful.
Thank you, Colleen. $5. She says,
Yay.
Trying hard to educate people on the propaganda of the media, still waiting for the footage of the throne chair. So am I. She's referring to the Nevada State Convention, where Debbie Wasserman Schultz went on live national television and pushed this BS theory that were pushed by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the media, that the Bernie Sanders delegates and all these people were tossing chairs in Nevada. I'm still waiting for the footage, too, because that didn't happen.
That was so... Actually, fun little anecdote. My clip of someone else's clip got on the Maddow show, showing that there was no chair throwing.
What do you mean?
Yeah, on my Twitter.
Oh, that got on Rachel Maddow's show?
Yeah.
Oh. So you're a little bit establishment
A
then.
little bit. No.
There you go.
No, they didn't even ask. They just took it.
Yes. Carrie says chlorine is in America's drinking water. Yes, it is. A lot of it. And in some cases, too little. Courtney, $5 on the super chat. Thank you. I stayed on a reservation once. They are still recovering from what the U.S. has done to them through history. Also manifests in rampant alcoholism. That is so true. When I was at Standing Rock, obviously, when I was at Standing Rock, the hotel was also a casino. So where people would meet was at the hotel bar. You could also eat food there and stuff. But everybody drank. And not because, they're bad people, but because that's what they turn to because of the total despair that they deal with. You have that systemic in elders as well as younger Native Americans. So that's a big, big problem, rampant alcoholism that is really, they don't have a lot of support for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought you were reading something.
Well, this is just the next story.
And press the share button. Let's get this out to more people. Unfortunately, we do get a lot of suppression on YouTube. So
but it's happy time.
We're about to. Let me
Only
see what number we're at because we also might be passing a YouTube milestone soon.
Ooh.
So we're at 16,904 subscribers.
Yes.
So almost at 17,000. We started the channel last week of February. So in 6 months, we're almost at 17,000 subscribers. Hey, we might be able to get to 20,000 by the end of September. We'll see.
That'd be amazing. So this story is interesting. It's from a journalist, Tom Englehart, from Tom Dispatch. And it's about the whereabouts of our military personnel. And this is something that I have not heard about, really, that we don't fully know always where or why our military are dispatched. Obviously, I'm not talking about cases where we shouldn't know for reasons of safety for those military or because of certain special actions, things like that. So here's what Tom has to say. Excuse me if, year after year, I've started to sound like a broken record, but when it comes to the missing stories of 2017, so that was last year, the one I always focus on concerns America's wars. Yes, they're in the news as kind of a low-level hum in the background of our media lives. Afghanistan, another more than 3,000, or is it 4,000, troops have been dispatched to join the 8,400, or is it 12,000, who were there as the Obama years ended. And don't even think about the 26,000 private contractors working for the U.S. in that country. Syria, yep, 500 American troops still fighting there. Or rather, maybe it's actually 2,000. And okay, across the Middle East and increasingly Africa, great cities are in ruins. The foundations of multiple societies wrecked and failed, states dime a dozen. But no point in making too big a deal of it. And what about those 44,000 American troops reportedly stationed somewhere in the Imperium, but who knows where, because the Pentagon claims it just can't account for them? And perhaps that's not so surprising for a place that has never been capable of successfully auditing itself. Where does all that military money go? Or how about those 70,000 U.S. Special Operations Forces, that semi-secret military that's larger than the armies of a surprising number of countries, and whose troops are deployed to more lands yearly, 149 in 2017, than any great power has ever sent its forces to. And of course, there's the rising beat of Trump-era drone strikes, airstrikes. Hey, shades of Vietnam, the last B-52s have been let loose in Afghanistan. Special ops raids, dead civilians, and so on. And yes, if you're a news jockey or war jockey and you're searching oh so carefully day by day, it's all there somewhere. But permanent war across a vast swath of the planet, now in its 17th year and increasingly thought of by the U.S. military as generational, in other words, forever. Well, no, it's not really a story. It's never put together in a truly meaningful way in the mainstream. It's just not really there. Not there. Not where any passing Trump tweet is in the news, not where the latest ISIS-inspired doofus who hit up a subway stop in my hometown with a suicide bomb that didn't quite work is. Not where the president's denunciations of NFL players who take a knee regularly are. War on our distant battlefields is the oh-so-distant backdrop for our oh-so-immediate lives. It's not what any of the media outlets now assigning battalions of reporters to swarm every presidential hiccup or burp find worthy of significant attention. Only problem is, our wars are changing this planet, and our own lives in ways hard to make tweetable but oh so consequential in the long run. Our wars need to be covered. As our president might say, bigly, or was it big league? Once again, in 2017, they were largely missing in action. Again, that's Tom Engelhart, editor of Tom Dispatch.
I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, at the end of the day, we see it all the time. It is assumed in this country, particularly by the media, that, well, don't ask questions. The Congress just passed the biggest defense budget in American history the other day. I think it's $700-something million. Not even a question about it. The Democrats helped push that through. We don't need, I mean, you could cut that in half and there would be no difference tomorrow. And it's never asked. I'm seeing articles on Politico. I'm seeing articles on CNN. CNN anchors asking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, well, how are you going to pay for Medicare for all? Well, do they ever ask, how are you going to pay for Yemen? How are you going to pay for Syria? How are you going to pay for Pakistan? How are you going to pay for, Afghanistan and Iraq and Somalia and all the other countries that the neocons, including Bill Kristol, who has been rehabilitated by MSNBC as a resistor, the resistance. It's military. Johanna says it. Military budget is grandfathered in. It's all good. Yeah, that's pretty much. So it's a mental sickness, basically saying, well, we need the military. Education would be nice, but it's not a necessity. Healthcare would be nice, but it's not a necessity, right? Heating in your apartment or your home during the winter is nice, but it's not a necessity. 13 billion of that was for Trump's Space Force. Oh God.
Space Force. I cannot.
Oh God. So it's insane. It's insane. It really is. Who said it? Dwight Eisenhower with the military-industrial complex warning about that. It has come to fruition, and this story shows it even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're inching on the 2-hour mark for our live stream here.
Woo-hoo.
2 hours. How many stories we got left?
We are at number 13.
Oh my God, I'm starving. So we'll see how.
We might not go as in depth on the other ones.
Okay. And wait, let's see where we're at with the GoFundMe. Since I think we've gone up like $500 or $600 so far. We are at 4,122. Okay,
Yay.
So we're trying to get to 5,000. A little bit of a stretch by the end of today, but I believe
it could happen. People will watch us after we're done, and people will still join. Have faith in the people.
Yes. So thank you for those who have been contributing. It has been a wonderful birthday, thanks to you. Endo, do a marathon. We're already doing a marathon. We started at 2:30. Endo, where you been? On to the next.
Okay, so the next one is very easy for you because it is something you talk about all the time, and it's the growing approval for Medicare for all across everybody.
Oh, yes. Squirrel Lips, $1.99 on the super chat.
Thank you,
I'm late to the
Squirrel
party.
Lips.
Damn work. This should be a national holiday, Squirrel. It's my birthday. No, that's okay. So why Medicare for all is on the list is this probably has gotten more coverage than a lot of the other stories, only because Bernie Sanders, through sheer grit and him going all over the country and him barnstorming America at the age of 76, he's done more traveling than President Trump has as president. Well, not more traveling, but more rallies and things like that. But the thing is, Medicare for all is now at 70% nationwide. So I asked Nina Turner in a recent interview, which is up on the channel. I said, well, the Democratic Party, the talking point was always 90% of Americans want background checks. How can we not get background checks when 90% of America wants it? Which I completely agree with. Well, 70 is not so far off from 90, is it? 70% want Medicare for all. 85% of the Democratic Party polled want Medicare for all. 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all. Isn't that kind of like a big deal and should be a news story that they cover in depth? Isn't that a big deal that CNN with its budget or the New York Times with its budget could go cover in depth, go out into the country, interview people struggling with their health care, how they would feel about Medicare for all? Maybe starting to look at the military budget, starting to look at the budget for, we always have the budget to give tax cuts to rich people, but we don't have the budget for Medicare for all, which is polling incredibly well. And this goes to a study many years ago that showed that we don't actually live in a democracy because like 90% or something of that, of the public sentiment wasn't matched with actual legislation. We don't live in a democracy. We don't even live in a representative republic. We live in an oligarchy with public servants that answer to their donors. That's the truth. And Medicare for all, I mean, there's been few articles, is a bargain. It's a bargain of how much we'd have to pay as Americans compared to how much we're paying for premiums, deductibles, co-insurance, and other little costs that they sprinkle in there for us to pay. It's outrageous. It's outrageous that every other country in the world that's industrialized just offers their citizens health care. I mean, it makes no sense other than we as a government are in business for our donors, for corporations. And there is, you even see in the media coverage of Amazon and Jeff Bezos. I did a video on this yesterday. Oh, but if we tax Jeff Bezos on every dollar that his workers have to go on food stamps, Jeff Bezos has to pay every dollar his workers go on food stamps, well, then he's not going to want to hire those workers anymore, those low-wage workers. Well, screw Jeff Bezos. Why is the government is our main concern about Jeff Bezos and companies like Amazon and not the people? Why is our main concern about the pharmaceutical industries and that it would hurt them and not the people? There's always new ways of creating new business. Green energy is a perfect example. When you do the right thing, moving away from fossil fuels, you could also create new industries out of it. Healthcare is the same thing. If you take it away from the pharmaceutical companies and don't let them dominate healthcare, guess what? You'd have more people being able to afford preventative treatment, and then you'd have less illness. It's not that complicated. You share your thoughts.
I completely agree. I think at this point, it just starts to make sense to everyone. As Bernie says, this, if you think about this 2 years ago, it seemed like such a radical idea, even to people like us a lot of times. But it became mainstream.
I don't think it ever seemed radical to us. I think it seemed like it was never going to happen.
No, it was something I never even thought about, really.
Before you were awoken.
Before I woke up to Bernie. But now it's like once you hear it explained and once you hear it compared to our military budget, to all the insane spending that our government does, it makes complete sense. And everyone from the staunchest Bernie supporter to Trump supporters, if you tell them the facts of how it works, they're for it. And it's only, I'm so convinced it's going to happen.
And by the way, many people, including my mother, I think you were there when I was speaking with her.
Yeah.
When they're against this, like, why should I pay for other people's health care? When I then explain, hey, Mom, guess what? You're already living in a socialist country because who do you think is paying for all these wars? You think it's the guy down the block and not you? We're already living in a socialist country. When I say to my mother, who do you think is paying for these tax cuts that your president, Donald Trump, I didn't vote for Donald Trump, my mother did. Who do you think is paying so that all of Donald Trump's donors and George Bush's donors and Ronald Reagan's donors and Andrew Cuomo's donors who gave tax cuts to rich people and organizations, who's paying for it? Us. I said to my mom, you're worried about paying for other people's health care? You're not worried about paying for the wars? You're not worried about paying for the tax cuts for rich people? You didn't seem to have a problem paying for public education so that I could go to school. It's the same principle. Everybody pays for K through 12 in their taxes so your kid could go to school and get a free education. Why? And it's the same thing. You pay for other people's health care so that, God forbid, something happens to you or your loved ones, which 9 times out of 10, something's going to happen in the course of your life, whether very serious or somewhat serious, whether it's physical, whether it's mental health. It's the same principle. Carrie says, LOL, same conversation with my parents, can't identify.
Hey guys, a commercial break. I don't know if you could see it because the delay is so bad.
Hold on. I'll tell you in a minute.
You can also...
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah. You can also see the birthday message I wrote. Anyway, the next
We're not beyond shameless promotion at this point. Because Ty and I and Jen is going to be going in the field sometimes. We want to get back out there. As much, I'm not knocking people that do commentary or reporting from their studio or from their house. Totally fine. for me and for us, we believe that a big part of the problem in journalism is there aren't people out there reporting on the ground, exposing stories that aren't being exposed. And that's why the injustice and corruption keeps happening, because there's no cameras on it. I can't tell you how many times people told me, for Standing Rock, for example, oh my God, they probably would have started shooting real bullets if your cameras weren't there at the time with the Young Turks. So real reporting actually does make a difference. It does make a difference.
Oh, people went to sing happy birthday to you. That's cute.
And Allison, thank you. Allison, let's get these ready. Just donated $50 to the GoFundMe.
Yay.
All right, let's see. She commented too, so I want to read her comment.
Oh, okay.
Jordan's honesty, integrity, and bravery impresses us, holds my attention. Jordan won my heart with his courageous coverage of 2016. Standing Rock. I love you, brother Jordan. Thank you, Allison. And this brings me to a very, very important point. Very, very important point. The reason I launched Status Coup, the reason we launched Status Coup, because Jen and I are business partners. It's co-founded. It's not just me. It's going to take more than Jordan. I appreciate the nice comments. It is my birthday, so I'll wear a crown if I want to. But my vision for honestly, if I'm keeping it real, it's not to knock at all my former employee, but I wanted more reporters, because sometimes it felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulder trying to cover everything.
Yeah.
And we're only humans, so I can't travel 24/7. It definitely wore me down. It wasn't good for me to be on the road as much as I was. So Status Coup is about creating, not more me's, because God knows it's enough.
One is enough.
One is enough. But do you know how I was like a miserable corporate media employee for 10 years. There's plenty of people that work in corporate media who are now just as miserable as I was at MSNBC and Fox, who think outside the box, who want to go cover unique stories. Unfortunately, there's no journalistic outlet for them. We want to expand. I honestly, long term, my vision would be me eventually receding to the background and propping up other journalists, because there's plenty of people out there that are aggressive. There's plenty of people that are willing to sacrifice, I don't want to say sacrifice your relationships and your life, but this line of work is a sacrifice. It just is. At my age, 32, I want to have more of a work-life balance, but I'm willing to get out on the road and miss holidays. I'm willing to get on the road and miss people's birthdays. I'm willing to get out on the road and miss time with my friends and families because it's so important to me. There are people out there like that, and that's part of what we're trying to build at Status Coup. It's going to take more than a GoFundMe. We do have a business model, so GoFundMe is to really get us kind of that spark plug to get us in the field. We have a business model beyond that, and once those paid memberships start coming in, which Jen could talk about more, we're going to be looking at other reporters. We're $5.
Thank you, Desi Murgy, and he won't be doing that. But
I won't be doing what you're calling on me to do.
But I will say, sometimes people cover Russia way too much and don't seem so progressive anymore. That's all.
What people are you talking about?
Just some people.
Just some people?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. But thank you for the $5. Desi Murgy, and I believe in moving forward, so I'm not going to be talking about former people.
But I will.
But if you want to know... I haven't talked about this a lot, but I also have my book out, Corporate Con Job, which is a whole separate Patreon, and I do talk about some things in there that I think you'd find interesting. We've been releasing chapters every month. I think we're up to chapter 15 that's coming out.
Next time will be 15, yeah. 14 was just released. It was really, really good.
Jen edits them and cries every time. So this is the...
But if anything's wrong, don't blame me.
Yeah, this is the Patreon for my book. Obviously, the Patreon.
It's very good.
This is the Patreon for my book, but...
Oh, Jacob's here.
Oh, Jen's son is here. Space Duck 147. Happy birthday. And by the way, let me tell you something. Jen's son, how old is your son, 11?
Yeah.
Is smarter than most Trump supporters I interviewed.
He's smarter than most adults.
And Hillary supporters. I was going to say Hillary supporters, too. This man, this pre-teenager is a very, very smart man, Jacob. And if you do all the things I've told you to do in life, maybe one day you could wear the crown.
Oh, God. Help us all.
So.
I think for the rest of the list, we should just maybe...
Wait. I want to give an update.
Oh.
So GoFundMe, we said at the beginning we want to hit 5,000. We're now at 4,172. So we're getting there. We're getting there. It's definitely going to be a hard test to get to 5,000 today, but I do believe in miracles. So if each person...
There's a whole rest of the day
If each person hasn't contributed, if each person contributes like
$10.
$5-10.
Yeah.
And obviously $10 is a lot for some people, but each person watching contributes that. And some people, have contributed more. Can't thank you enough. As a reminder, $100 gets you a hat or a shirt. 127 gets you both.
Indeed.
Yes. And Endo says, Space Dunk is fortunate to have a fabulous mother.
Thank you, Endo. He's a wonderful son.
Yes.
I think, we should just read through the rest of the list and maybe share some comments along the way. The next thing is Chicago on our list.
Yes.
Chicago. You went there.
Chicago, honestly, to me, is the biggest example of, I don't even like calling it gentrification because a lot of people don't really know this doesn't have a connotation. Chicago is just, it's basically becoming segregation. It
Can
might
I close this? There's buffering.
No, don't close it. Because then Facebook gets chopped off. You need this for Facebook.
Okay.
Chicago is basically Rahm Emanuel, who has said he is not running for re-election, thank God, is the personification of everything wrong with the corporate Democrats. So when people on Twitter and Facebook say, Jordan, stop going after the Democrats, you're going to elect more Republicans, you're going to keep Trump in office. Well, what do you call a mayor of a city spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to gentrify a 7-block radius so that wealthier white people could move in? What do you call pushing black people out of a city, which right now Chicago has record numbers of black people being pushed out? What do you call black people being murdered by police and nothing being done? Or with the Democratic mayor? What do you call thousands and thousands of murders? Yes, black people killing black people, but it's not, as Bill O'Reilly says, a culture problem. It's an economic problem. They are in economic desperation. So don't you think if there's a pattern of black and black crime, maybe you should look at why they're on the streets in the first place? Because they don't have access to jobs, because they don't have access to health care, because they don't have access to enough food or water sometimes. Literally, Chicago is a war zone. It is a war zone. And it gets very little coverage. And when me and Ty were there a couple of weeks ago, the local press in Chicago was just as bad. They report the killings almost like it's the nightly sports score. How many people were killed? Move on to the next stupid story.
Yeah.
It's shameful. And yes, there's gentrification and those kinds of things happening elsewhere. But in my travels, I have seen no other example greater than Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think keep going, or you want?
No, keep going.
More Chicago? Okay, the next one is...
And by the way, if you're coming to this late, the GoFundMe is to go out and cover a lot of these stories that we are talking about today. So that's what the GoFundMe is for. It's not a GoFundMe so we can go out and have a nice steak dinner, or for you vegetarians, kale. We are going out to cover the real stories. Girly Gamer, Jimmy gets at least 5,000 live viewers on his Saturday streams. He sure does.
People in the comments were saying Jordan and Jimmy should do an interview. Actually, there is one. So if you look, we have it on our channel, and Jimmy has it on his channel. And it's talking about the previous Flint story as well as the launch of Status Coup. So he has been on Jimmy's show, and it's a really good interview.
Yeah, I think the first interview I did when I launched this channel was on Jimmy's show.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
Love Jimmy Dore. And let me tell you something. You definitely know Jimmy's being suppressed to get him to go in on a Saturday. That's for sure. Jimmy likes his weekends, as I do too.
So the next story, the Mountain Valley Pipeline and the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. They're two different pipelines, but there's going to be some areas where they connect. I can't remember the exact map. But that's where we went to the tree sit protests, where they're literally getting in trees on their own land. So this land was taken via eminent domain. And in one case, the land had been in the family for 400 years. And the pipeline companies were allowed to come in, seize it, and say, oh, yeah, we're going to put this pipeline right through your land, cut down your hundreds of years old trees. And I believe I can't remember who gave them the land. It's England, somewhere in England. But the point is, these people were sitting in trees so that they couldn't cut down the trees and build the pipeline. They did it anyway. However, there is good news because
thank you for the $20 donation from Paul. He said we need as much true alternative media as possible. So thank you to Paul. We're almost at 4,200. There is good news because part of the pipeline was shut down. They halted construction because they are constructing these pipelines on such steep slopes. They're having serious mudslides problems because on the Appalachian Trail, when it rains, you often have problems with mudslides. Well, if you're building pipelines which are moving the earth, every time you build a pipeline, it moves the earth. So when you're doing this, guess what? You have dangerous amounts of runoff and mudslides. And by the way, during Hurricane Florence, they were told, who's the company that owns this? I forget the company that owns Mountain Valley Pipeline. They were told to stop construction. Of course, it's
Dominion?
No, that's
the
Atlantic.
other one.
It's a greedy fossil fuel company, so they blew it off and did it anyway. Because in this country, fossil fuel companies who break the law do not go to jail. They pay a fine, which is pennies on the dollar for them. When Energy Transfer Partners was illegally building the Dakota Access Pipeline, despite Barack Obama, when he was president, shutting it down, they kept on building anyway. They got a fine. Same thing when you see pipeline companies that leak and have leaks that destroy water bodies, destroy animal life, make people sick, they get a fine. Or they pay a settlement from a lawsuit.
1 day ago.
Oh, learn something new every day.
We might have some new news on the Mountain Valley Pipeline.
Work being done on the Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia County will be halted as a judge has ordered a temporary stay. Breaking news. The Register Herald reports Summers and Monroe County Circuit Court Judge Robert Irons issued that stay Tuesday over construction in Summers County. It will specifically stop work on property where the pipeline will enter the Greenbrier River in Pence Springs. As Ashby Berkeley, the Greenbrier River Watershed Association, and other petitioners brought the motion after neighbors told Berkeley workers started removing trees on his land last week. Their attorney, Kevin Thompson, argued the State Environmental Protection Department permit for the crossing isn't in compliance with the Natural Streams Preservation Act.
Wow.
I learn things every day.
Great.
Courtney W., are you counting your super chats toward the GoFundMe total, or is that a separate thanks? That is separate. That's why, of course, we're not going to knock you if you leave super chat fund, but we're definitely we're looking more for the GoFundMe, because the GoFundMe, why it's important not just for the actual amount. Of course, we want the amount, which would be $50,000. We also want to be able to show how much support we have. So right now we're at 71 people have supported in 8 days. We'd love to get that number by the end of this to like 500 people supported, 1,000 people supported, because we want to be able to show as our business model, wow, we have this base of support already that are willing to pay money, not to mention the paid monthly patrons we have and all that. So definitely, I'm not going to knock you if you leave a super chat contribution, but we're definitely looking first and foremost for the GoFundMe.
So for Mountain Valley Pipeline, I just looked it up, Consolidated Edison and EQT.
Yes, EQT owns the Mountain Valley Pipeline. So I literally, the first story in the field that I did after I launched this channel was the Mountain Valley Pipeline, because literally I was getting people sending me messages saying that people are climbing trees in Virginia to stop them from cutting down the trees on their property to put this pipeline through. You don't see reporters out in the woods covering these things. You don't see reporters covering these things and interviewing the tree sitters. You don't see people making this a story, making people pay attention, and it's critical we do. Eminent domain is being used not just against tree-hugging hippies, even against conservatives. I think eminent domain and these pipelines is the one issue that could actually bring together tree-loving hippies with like Dick Cheney-loving conservatives, because conservatives, when I interviewed people in West Texas on their ranches, they didn't like eminent domain being used to steal their property and ram a pipeline through. That one family I spoke to can literally explode. The pipeline, if it explodes, is 400 yards from their window.
Yeah. Thank you, Courtney. That's awesome. Okay, so the next one is the Bayou Bridge, and you've been covering this for the last few weeks.
Yes. So I've been trying to get down there to cover it, but we just don't have the funding, to keep it real. That's why we're doing this. So obviously, the Bayou Bridge pipeline, it's the final piece of the Dakota Access Pipeline, and it is basically the final piece to allow them to send this to export terminals and then export it to other countries. So you keep hearing we need this for energy independence. It's not for energy independence. It's so that we could literally make oil companies, fossil fuel companies richer. Because then when the government makes them richer, it keeps the money flowing into their campaign coffers. That's how this works. So they've been arresting water protectors and journalists. I just did an interview with Karen Savage, which I put up on the channel this morning. She's been arrested now for the second time and charged with felony for covering what's going on down there. Essentially, new ALEC laws, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is a terrible, terrible, hard right lobbying group, is basically buying off politicians to create legislations in Louisiana and North Dakota and other places that make it a crime and a felony to basically protest pipelines and other fossil fuel projects. They're making it a crime and a felony with serious jail time and serious fines so that they intimidate environmentalists, indigenous people, and then they are sending their private mercenaries who are not public police. They are not paid for by the taxpayers. They're paid for by these oil companies and these fossil fuel companies to go out and arrest Native Americans and environmental activists. There are Native Americans and the journalists who are getting arrested, yanked out of kayaks. They're on public water bodies kayaking near the pipeline and getting arrested and knocked on the ground, violently handcuffed. Even though the indigenous woman that I showed you a couple weeks ago was screaming, "You're going to break my arm." And that wasn't a police officer. That was a private mercenary. And trust me, it's hot down there. I'm not in love with going down into the hot bayou, but I'll do it because this needs to have attention on it. So that's a big part of why we're doing the GoFundMe. We would love to go cover the Bayou Bridge resistance. There's also Line 3, the Line 3 replacement pipeline that's going through Minnesota and other states. It's going to cross 700 water bodies. I'd love to go cover that. The indigenous woman from Earth Justice is leading the fight. Oh, Winona LaDuke is leading the fight on that. So I would love to get out there. There's a lot of other pipeline resistances that could become the next Standing Rock as far as the attention that gets on it, but don't have the initial reporting. So that's part of it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so number 17 on this list, we've kind of covered already through talking about Deal Island. So that is climate change in general. So the next two, 18 and 19, Birmingham, Alabama minimum wage fight, and also we can kind of talk at the same breath about the Missouri rolling minimum wage back to lower.
So when I was at the Young Turks, I went down to Alabama, and Birmingham is 74% black. I covered the fact that their elected city council voted for a minimum wage increase from the starvation wage of $7.25 to $10.10. I don't think $10.10 is enough. I don't even think $15 is enough. If you're looking at inflation over the last 2 or 3 decades, the minimum wage should be closer to like $22, $25. But $10.10 is better than $7.25, so that's something. And the almost all white legislature in Alabama, the state legislature, overturned that city council vote. You're seeing other state legislatures overturn cities and try to restrict cities and municipalities from raising their minimum wage. Well, who the hell is the state legislature to overturn democratically elected city council members? Just like who the hell was governor of Michigan, Rick Snyder, to appoint unelected emergency managers to go and unilaterally into Flint and essentially overrule the mayor of Flint. That's why the Flint water crisis happened, because an unelected emergency manager decided, hey, it's a good idea to switch to a toxic river and not add the proper chemicals, all in an attempt to privatize. So you have in Birmingham, you have St. Louis, for example. They raised it, I believe, to $10.10. And now the governor, before he was ousted for his sexual scandal, moved it back down to $7.70. You want to talk about Russia attacking our democracy? Well, isn't our democracy based on if you elect city officials or state officials to vote on things and pass laws that those laws then pass. You also have in South Dakota, there was a ballot measure, an anti-corruption ballot measure that passed that the state legislature overturned. So not only are they overturning city councils and local governments that are passing minimum wage hikes, they're overturning ballot measures that you, the people, pass. So what is that other than an authoritarian dictatorship? Unbelievable. So I would love to get back down to Alabama, and I would love to get down to cover other places where where the minimum wage is being increased, but then the state legislatures and the governors are basically toppling the democracies and toppling the elected leaders who are voting for that. And I would love to show you that. Help us do it?
Well, no.
Oh, we're not ready? Okay.
Actually, this next one, so this is number 20. Jordan actually just released a couple of book chapters on this, and it's East Chicago. And I know this one's near and dear to your heart. It gets no media coverage, and it is absolutely outrageous.
And again, I have a book. If you're not a Patreon, you could get all my chapters. We're up to chapter 15. I think you could do it as low as $1.
Yeah, $1.
Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton for those book chapters. I'll put that in for you right here. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and we only have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 7 hours till my birthday is over on the East Coast. I would love to get to 5,000. What are we at now? 222. All right, 4192. So about 800 away. I think we could do it. Thanks for all who have been contributing during this live stream. So East Chicago was essentially another Flint, a different form. It happened in a different way, but the same effect, and it has gotten barely any news coverage. And what's shocking about East Chicago is this happened under potentially the next president of the United States. If you want to impeach Donald Trump, if you're listening to all these people saying impeach Donald Trump, Mike Pence is going to become president. He was governor of Indiana when this happened. Cheryl Gibson, can you publish a book at Patreon? Didn't know that. Yeah, we're going to actually release the hard copy of all these chapters soon. So, East Chicago, they basically built low-income housing and housing for poor people on top of a lead smelting plant decades ago, and then decided not to actually check, what are the lead levels in the soil? What are the lead levels in the water? And they found in 2016 lead levels in the soil to over 200 times the, quote, allowable limit for lead in the soil. Children were playing for decades in that soil. Children who became adults. In East Chicago, you cannot go 1 block without finding half the block has cancer. You cannot find it. Half the block has serious, like beyond bronchitis, chronic respiratory problems, and all sorts of illnesses brought on by lead in the ground, lead in the air, and not just lead, but they found high levels of arsenic too. And when I was at the Young Turks, I was down there and I asked the EPA official there, have you tested the water? He said, no, this is not a water issue. This is not Flint. Well, a few months later, they found lead in the water. East Chicago has totally fallen off the map. And Mike Pence, when he was governor of Indiana, he did not go down to East Chicago, Indiana. He barely lifted a finger for East Chicago, Indiana. But when Greentown, Indiana had a water problem, the only difference, Greentown, Indiana, 96% white. East Chicago, majority is Hispanic and black. Mike Pence, he went down to Greentown and he acted real quick. And they fixed that lead in the water problem in 2 months. East Chicago, still begging for help.
Cheryl says her name is Simpson, not Gibson.
Oh, sorry.
And Natalie says Jordan might need to visit the ophthalmologist. I will tell you that Jordan gets my name wrong all the time. So
well, Jordan's also starving and didn't eat yet, but is keep going for the people.
Oh, look, we have breaking news. Jordan, you want to read it?
Hold on. No, because it's fake news. You want to know why?
We have a new one?
Because somebody just donated. Hold on. Wait. Let me get the number. All right. So
I did bring him food. He has Cheetos.
Lori just donated $127.
Whoa! That deserves.
And posted a comment. Please give my hat and T-shirt to the next 2 people who donate $10.
Oh my gosh, that's
Unbelievable.
amazing.
Lori, that is personal kindness like I cannot even express. Lori wants us to give her shirt and hat to the next people who donate $10. I will honor that request. So the next people that donate $10 each will get a shirt and a hat.
Natalie, he wanted them. Yeah, that's so sweet. So the next,
The next people will get a shirt or a hat.
Right. So $10 or more, GoFundMe, you guys will get a shirt or a hat. That's so cool.
Well, the next 2.
That's what I said.
Yes.
He likes to correct me, and he's wrong.
So how much are we at now?
Oh, I did one.
Wow, 43.19. So we're not so far from 5,000,
That's
folks.
amazing.
We started today, I think, at 3,600. So we've raised. I'm terrible at math, but I think that's about $700. Is anyone else better at math? You guys want me to bring over some white manna? You guys in New York should know it's the best cheeseburgers on earth. I would take that gladly.
That's how much today.
How much?
$584.
We've raised $584. I think we could get to 5,000 if we keep it going. So
I'm bad at aiming for the camera. Sorry,
thank you
guys.
to everyone. And as a reminder, we're not like reading these stories for our health. We are reading these stories because we'd like to go cover them on the road. I believe, and I've seen it is possible, when you shine the first camera, or you shine the camera when all the other cameras have left, you help make things a national story. You help hold government officials accountable, but you can't do it if nobody knows about it. You can't wake people up if people continued asleep, and they're being left asleep by CNN and MSNBC. They're being left asleep by the New York Times and the Washington Post. This kind of journalism can actually shine a light on serious things going on in the country. Natalie just donated $10 with a comment, so she's getting a hat or a shirt.
Yay, Natalie.
I want a shirt, Natalie said.
All right, so the hat is still up for...
Well, the other person
grabs.
could get a shirt too if they want.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
We're very
So
flexible.
Natalie's getting a shirt or a hat. That's very kind of you, Lori.
So Natalie, email Jordan at protonmail.com with your what you want, your size, and mailing address.
You guys should get volunteer affiliates, they wrote.
I'm a huge fan of affiliate marketing, if that's what you mean. And because we are going to have a membership site where you guys could become affiliates.
Yes. So next story.
Next story.
And thank you to everybody. I'm really encouraged too, because now we're up to 72 people, and at the beginning that have contributed. And at the beginning of the day, I think we were at like 51 maybe. So I want to get the numbers up so we could also be able to show this is a community that we're building. This is a community of people who want this.
Okay, so the next story is mining near Native American lands.
Jesus Christ. Not only are governments trying to steal the Native Americans' land so that they could get the oil, they're also trying to mine uranium, which is absolutely deadly. We've seen in most of these places, especially reservations that are close to uranium mines, have insane levels of cancer and illness because uranium leaks into the ground, into the air, into the water, you name it. And there is very little coverage of the uranium mining. Obviously, coal mining is a big problem, but the uranium mining is definitely something that I would like to go cover. It's happening out west a lot and elsewhere. So, and Natalie says, eat more fiber, Jordan. I want to see some fruits and veggies going in so we know you'll be ready to roll. I got strawberries that I've been eating in the refrigerator, so absolutely. Witchy, uranium is so dangerous, WTF. Yes, it's very dangerous. So, yes, I want to go out and cover these uranium mines. We're also seeing sites that have nuclear waste in St. Louis and other areas in the country, Massachusetts too. They have nuclear waste that they buried from the Manhattan Project days. That waste, including uranium, is leaking into the ground and into water streams. And guess who's drinking it? You. I showed my aunt from Massachusetts the video about landfills near her town that are leaking uranium in addition to other things, and she was freaked the hell out and started sharing it all around. I don't even live in Massachusetts. I'm not media in Massachusetts. The Massachusetts media is not covering this. It's terrible. And we just got another contribution.
Yay!
Colleen donated $15 and commented. So you're getting a hat. Jordan,
Or a shirt.
Jordan is awesome. Thank you, but don't forget about Jen. She's pretty awesome too. So let's see what.
So email us, email jordan@protonmail.com, size, what you want, mailing address, all of it.
It's so incredible what you could do from the people. 4344. So not so far away from 5,000.
Incredible.
Keep it coming, baby. Keep it coming. Because what do I always say to you? When you say, I'd like to get this, we need to do this to get these stories out. We need to do this to get out in the field. We need to get this monthly thing for research or to file freedom of information requests. And I say, we got to get the money.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of this costs money.
Yeah.
And that's why, in large part, corporate media, they don't spend money on real journalism for several reasons. One is their parent companies that are multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates don't want them to. The second is they it's a lot cheaper to just, like the video for the GoFundMe said, put Democrat A in the left box, put Republican B in the right box, an attractive male or female anchor in the middle, and have a food fight bridging you to the next Viagra commercial. That is cable news. The New York Times and the Washington Post, why they cover like the palace intrigue and what's happening behind the scenes in the Trump administration, rather than life or death stories, is because they don't want to actually spend the money to do real reporting on the ground. Investigative reporting costs money. In some cases, you might have to be out somewhere for weeks to really break a massive story. That's why most people don't do it. We're not doing this because it's easy to do it. We're doing this because it's so important to do this.
Yeah. So the next story is arrests of journalists. I think you might have some personal experience with this.
Yes, I actually don't love talking that much about journalist arrests because I don't want to make it seem like the arrest of journalists is more unsettling than the arrest of protesters or activists. It's all unsettling. But when you start to arrest journalists for covering events, that is the precursor to fascism. Censorship is one of the precursors to fascism. So when you're seeing journalists arrested trying to cover protests of pipelines, when you see journalists arrested trying to cover protests against police brutality, when you see journalists arrested trying to cover them killing a black man just hanging out in his apartment, I'm talking about Botham Jean. When you see these things, the intent is to cover it up so that people don't know what the state is doing to the people. That's the intent. It's to scare the shit out of news organizations. It's to deter them from wanting to cover things. And it's to stop the cameras from showing what's going on. This was the MO in Standing Rock. That's why they were trying to arrest journalists. This is why they arrested Ty and I and other journalists in St. Louis. They don't want us to be able to show honestly, terrorist tactics that the police are using. Police are gassing people who have no weapons and aren't actually breaking the law. Like tear gas is a chemical weapon. It's banned in the use of it's banned in war, but they use it on American citizens. So it's very, very critical. You don't have to like even if a CNN journalist got arrested, I don't like CNN, but I would be in the first line of defense to defend their right to cover the news, even if they do it in a shitty way that I think is propaganda, because they are out there covering stuff. They might not necessarily cover it the way I think it needs to be covered, but they're still covering it, and it needs to be protected. So that's what I think. And you're a journalist now, so what do you think?
I completely agree. I would stand up for any journalist who was arrested. It's the silencing of people who are trying to get news to the people, and that's a very dangerous, very dystopian thing. Yes,
absolutely. And it's not fun to sit in jail overnight, so I can only imagine what African Americans and brown people and innocent white people are doing who literally have done nothing but are literally serving jail terms for 2-3 years for nothing. Yeah. There are black people in St. Louis jail that are working in the workhouse jail literally for broken taillight. That's how the arrest started.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Okay, so the next couple we can kind of move past kind of quickly. So number 23 is escalation of relations with Russia. This is basically just not a condemnation, just kind of how gross it is that everyone has lost their minds about Russiagate. They've literally lost their minds, even people who were sane before. So that...
Are you talking about anyone specific? Go ahead.
Maybe. We kind of covered this before. Number 24 is questions on military spending. So we touched on that before for sure with the previous article that we read. Number 25 is the Obama admin and the corporate corruption. So Obama, people say, oh, I miss Obama so much. I love all the people in his administration. His cabinet was great. Well, people forget, and then people don't pay attention to what happens next. So they're up to some, gathering their dollars, basically, getting money wherever they can from whoever they can, not the democratic hope dream it purported to be. I don't know if you have more on that.
I think that often the corporate media, in efforts to not cover anything of substance, creates scandals that don't exist. Do I think it's a good thing that the Russian government is sending troll armies, or if the Russian government hacked the DNC or John Podesta, which I still haven't seen incontrovertible evidence for? No, I don't think it's a good thing. But I also know history, and I know the United States does it all the time. Oh, it didn't show the link.
It don't have a link.
Oh, it doesn't. It literally, the United States has been interfering in other elections since the beginning of time. So I don't think this Russia thing is really about Russia, or the media thinks it's such a grave threat to American democracy. I think it is a distraction so they don't have to cover the real problems, which are the progressive uprising in this country. Even Trump supporters bought into, in some part, to a progressive message. The only difference is Bernie had the real message. Trump was faking it and making it up as he went. He's not a progressive, but Trump on the campaign trail was against the puppets and our government, our politicians that are bought off by the donors. Trump was against Goldman Sachs and those bankers. The media doesn't actually want to cover the real reason Hillary Clinton lost, the real reason you're seeing all these progressive victories, because then they would have to cover income inequality, which isn't part of their ratings plan. Then they would have to cover that CEOs are making 300 times their employees. Then they would have to cover, the insane amounts of poverty in this country. Then they would have to cover the corporate welfare going on in this country. They don't want to cover that, so they're recreating a Cold War on our television, which is kind of scary because, don't think for a second if this doesn't continue, it doesn't increase the threat of nuclear weapons. Putin or whoever becomes Russia's leader in the future, if America keeps threatening Russia, if America keeps demonizing Russia or other countries with nuclear weapons, and lots of them, America dropped the bomb once. You don't think it could happen again? And you don't think there's going to be a leader crazy enough to start shooting nuclear weapons at us? So it's, generally speaking, not a good idea to have a never-ending contest of wills when there is not a real scandal. What is a greater threat to America? Russia or our own government? I say our own government.
Yeah. Do you want me to just read the rest of the list and then you can add whatever you want? Because then we have time to wrap up the GoFundMe stuff. So let's see here. Questions on military spending we went over. Oh, yeah. So we're on Yemen. So essentially, Yemen is just not covered at all. I think what Chris Hayes covered it once or something like that, and everyone bowed down to him. Good job for covering it once.
Oh, he covered it for 2 minutes. Very good.
Right. So obviously we focus more on domestic news, but what's happening in Yemen is absolutely atrocious, and it's no coincidence that it's not being talked about at all. So, number 27, defense contractors and weapons manufacturers donations to politicians. That falls in line with the stuff we've been talking about, the Pentagon and defense spending and all that. Obviously, what's near and dear to our heart is number 28, lead and unsafe water across the country. Again, we hate to keep teasing this, but major story coming out on that front. In a very big outlet, by the way. 29, decline in corporate media viewership. So basically, that shows me, CNN is doing terribly. And CNN has long been the gold standard in news, supposedly. But that's what everyone thought of. When you think of the news, you just turn CNN on. but their viewership is awful, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason people are not excited about corporate news right now, corporate media. So number 30, Americans are tired of the status quo, and this goes into Jordan's disappearing middle class tour. Everyone we talk to is totally in tune with what we're doing with status quo. They're tired of the status quo. They're tired of corporate media. They're tired of the politicians. And even avid Trump supporters are becoming very, very tired of Trump. And obviously, Dems don't get it. So we talk about that as well. Like, the Dems, like the Nancy Pelosi's, is what I'm talking about. They just don't get it. They think they can just do their fundraising and have everything keep going with the status quo. It's not going to work that way. And let's see, 31. Dems are finally coming out for the pony ideals of Sanders supporters. So like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, like they came out for Medicare for All. Obama kind of did the other day. But are they really supporting it? No, of course they're not. They are in the sense that they would push the bill through now because it's politically advantageous. But they weren't on board with it for reasons of being a human. You know, they weren't on board with it for the right reasons. They're just on board with it politically. So read the last one, Jordan.
I don't know if this is something we are going to cover because it's just...
No, but it's a summary.
America's hunger for independent media. You know, I think that when you start a company, whatever it is, whether it's a media company, a financial company, whatever, they tell you to do like market research, right? They tell you to do focus groups. And I think to a certain extent, it's good to like research your competitors and research the market and all those things. But in a lot of ways, they tell you to do those things to find out like what the people want and what the people are willing to purchase and what the people are willing or feel that they need. Like what are the needs in the marketplace, right? Well, I was very fortunate. Oh, my mother's calling me. Mom, I'm live right now. All right, talk to you later.
By the way, his mom is the best woman in the whole world. She's
very
wonderful.
Very wonderful woman. So they are basically. I was very fortunate to be able to go out to the country for the last 2.5 years and speak with thousands of people. I have spoken either on camera or off camera with thousands of people. And let me tell you something, 99.9% of them were not rolling in it. 99% of them were middle class or poor. And I got pretty much the same sentiment from most people. Thank you. Why is no one else covering this? We need more of this. Can you try and get so-and-so to cover it? Can you try and get the word out to more and more people? People are not only yearning for this, in a lot of cases, people are desperate for real media that covers things. And I want to repeat, I said it in the beginning, I'll say it now. I think Unicorn Riot does great things. They're out in the field on quite a lot of stories. I think Democracy Now! On occasion goes out in the field. And I mean, it's not all the time, but they sometimes go out there in the field. But by and large, there really aren't media networks, especially independent ones, that get out there in the field to cover the raw, the ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly, the sideways, and the corrupt. Because A, it costs money, and B, most people are just, especially journalists, actually, a secret, are lazy and don't want to actually exert the energy. It's a lot easier to just aggregate news sitting in a cubicle and then go to happy hour with your fellow journalists after work. So I know my market research is going around the country and talking to 1,000 people. I know people are desperate for this kind of reporting. That's why people are contributing to GoFundMe. That's why people are paid patrons every month. It's not for charity. It's because it's something they want. And it's something in a lot of cases they need. I believe we need to shift the mentality for independent media, real independent media, from a luxury to a necessity. Because it is a necessity. It's to me, I'm not gonna go crazy. It's not the same thing as water or food. But an informed populace, you can't have an active and awoken populace that fights for its humanity and rights if most people don't know the threats against them, if most people don't know the corruption against them, if most people don't know the rigged economy against them, if most people don't know. So that's why I believe in this. That's why I believe in status quo. That's why I believe in Jen, because she shares that vision. I would rather hire an inexperienced person. I would rather hire a less experienced person that shares the vision and bleeds this vision than a more experienced person that doesn't. So that's what I believe. That's why we launched the GoFundMe, because we're going to be honest. It's not easy. It costs money to do this, and it's going to cost money in the long term to do this. I think we have the right business model to do it, but we need funding in the beginning.
I actually asked Jordan to write some quotes for me about, to kind of promote the company, promote the GoFundMe. So they're really, really good quotes. Do you want me to read them or you? Me? Okay. So this is from Jordan. There are two Americas. One is an alternative universe concocted by out-of-touch coastal elites that make up corporate media, and one that is the actual reality of unprecedented corruption, injustice, economic oppression, silent segregation, keeping minorities as second-class citizens, environmental genocide, and a disappearing proletariat that's been treading water for decades. It's about damn time for a media network that shames the former while exposing the latter. Very, very good. On the second one, status quo isn't interested in conforming to the dinosaur definition of journalism, filled with its faux neutrality and faux truth. We are not neutral to corruption. We are not neutral to oligarchy. We are not neutral to the destruction of the planet, and we will never turn a blind eye to the powerful taking advantage of the vulnerable. We'll leave the scenography for the government and corporations to the corporate media. We are going to give the microphone back to the people.
Woo!
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'd say I have chills, but that would be too egocentric. No, that's honestly what I believe. That will be in the press release when we officially launch Status Coup. That will be in our branding and our marketing. Because at the end of the day, man, I've done enough work that's essentially about just getting a paycheck. I've done enough work where you wake up in the morning and it's like, oh, damn it, I got to go through this again. I've been there and I've done that, and I'm not going to do it again. I'd rather have to do this the hard way, which is, GoFundMe and, many different creative ways we have to come up with ways of paying for funding and these kinds of things. But I wouldn't trade it doing it this way. I would not trade doing it this way to go back to being asleep. I would not trade real reporting on real issues in favor of, going viral and getting more Twitter followers and being part of the narrative and the conversation. Fuck all that noise. I don't care about that. I also don't care about myself that much, because to me, there's a humane person and a non-humane person. I don't know many people that if they sat on a porch with a poisoned 37-year-old mother in Flint as her poisoned kids were running around, all with health problems, who wouldn't be affected by that. I was. I don't know many people who would be in Standing Rock in minus 20 degrees talking to Native Americans about the time that they were 15 in the 1960s and the government forced them out of their homes to build a dam and left them in the freezing tundra of the North Dakota winter to basically live or die in the winter. I talked to people in Standing Rock about that. I don't know many people who wouldn't be affected by that. I don't know many people who wouldn't be affected by talking to poor black people in East Chicago whose kids all have severe behavioral problems or learning disabilities, or a woman who had to get a hysterectomy at age 29 because they moved into a housing complex built on top of a lead smelting plant and nobody told them. I don't know people who wouldn't be affected by that. And if they wouldn't be affected by that, they're called sociopaths, borderline psychopaths. I do know some of those. So those are some of the reasons I'm in this. And that's why we're asking for your contributions. We've gotten, let's see what we're at here. We're at almost at $4,500. So we've gotten quite a bit.
Amazing.
Quite a bit in this live stream, but this is so we can get back in the field and cover the stories that I truly, truly think are necessary, and I truly, truly think you want. And also, it's part of our business model. So when we're out in the field, we'll be able to cover things that no one else is covering, and then be able to bring people on, attract people to become members. Because we don't only want to preach to people who already follow us. We want to build new audiences.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's it.
I think that's it.
I'm
Thank
out of
you
bullets.
guys for celebrating with us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've made my birthday so special. I won't be live, but if you want to contribute, here's the screenshot one more time. I'd love to get to 5,000 by the end of the day. If we don't, we don't, but I'd love to do it. Thank you. I think we've had like over 20 people contribute today to get us to this number.
And $609 raised today.
$609 raised. So definitely, we're trying to push the limit, and we're not waiting for the 50,000 to get in the field. We're definitely getting in the field much sooner than that. But we're trying to get that 50,000, so we have a little cushion so that we don't have to constantly be like, all right, we could go for like 2 days, but then we have to come back. Because let me tell you, flights cost money, rent-a-cars cost money, hotels cost money, food on the road costs money. This all definitely costs money. So thank you. Thank you for the birthday wishes and all that good stuff. Peace out.
I think it's time to eat.
Yes. Bye-bye.